My crazy neighbor quite literally poisons the water that goes to my yard and also demands full access to my property. But instead of giving in to this psycho Karen, I decide to match crazy with crazy by getting my lawyer involved in this entire process, as I'm determined to make sure that this crazy behavior is stopped right here and right now. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I live on a large property with a small house in the front. There are many small hot springs in the semi-rural mountain area that I live in, with many used by homeowners in their backyard. Many are piped indoors, but some have hot tubs built around them, and I happen to have an active one in my backyard near my left neighbor's house. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this the crazy neighbor, and trust me, they truly are. A small stream runs through the far backyards of the neighborhood, and it's used for gardens and little nature areas that everyone on the street enjoys. I have my small fruit and pepper garden watered by this stream, and I take really good care of it. For some visualization, it has a good amount of water flowing down, and everyone on the street uses it in some way. My right neighbor, who's a really chill dude, who I will call Jay for the sake of the story, has small pools that he made that are fed by the stream, and 2 neighbors down has a garden similar to mine. Now with that bit of context out of the way, this is where things get really crazy. When I bought the house, the previous owners were sued by this crazy neighbor, with her claiming that the land was rightfully hers. I don't know the details of her argument, but it was thrown out as far as I know. The previous owners warned me about this crazy neighbor and told me not to engage with her family. When I moved in, the crazy neighbor's kids, all 3 of them, brought over some cookies and welcomed me into the neighborhood. I thought that the previous owner was exaggerating, as they seemed so sweet. So I invited the crazy neighbor and her family to a small barbecue, and they accepted. Well, the second that they got in the house, this neighbor started to explain the rules of the neighborhood. I thought it was pretty normal, like not to play loud music after 9, keep your car in the driveway to keep the street uncluttered, etc. Just some common sense rules, right? Well, that is until she got to some rules regarding the stream and the hot springs. She said that kids were allowed in all parts of the stream, even in private backyards, and that everyone could use each other's hot springs. And when I heard this, I was surprised because I have the only hot spring on the street. I then interrupted her and I told her that I wasn't comfortable with those, and she literally scoffed, saying that all neighbors were fine with it. I told her that I still wasn't comfortable with it, but she just ignored me, continuing with some questionable rules. The rest of the night was fine, but I felt like I wouldn't want to do that again. I talked to some neighbors across the next couple of days who all told me to steer clear of that crazy neighbor and that her rules were complete BS. I then went over to this crazy neighbor's house and I told her that I had talked to the other neighbors and that I was not comfortable with anyone being in my backyard without my permission. Well, she let out a scoff and said, okay. I then had lunch with Jay and he told me who this crazy neighbor was. She is a serial suer, with her lawyer on speed dial to get whatever she wants. She had even sued a small chain pizza place in town into debt for having peanut oil on her pizza when she was allergic to it. But the pizza chain didn't even have peanut oil, and many people in the small community believe that she put it on it. But even still, they lost everything. So I decided not to ever talk to her or her family ever again. Well, a week later, I got home from the grocery store and I see the crazy neighbor's kids splashing in my hot spring tub. And for reference, it is outside, and usually it has a lid on it that 2 small kids would definitely not be able to take off as it is heavy and large. I then tell them that they're not allowed in it and to leave my yard immediately. But you know what? They stand their ground, telling me that their mom told them that it was theirs and that they could use it whenever they wanted. I told them that that's not true and to leave right now. Well, they finally do. And before you think that I'm a jerk for that, remember that pools and hot tubs are dangerous, and I don't want to be liable. I then headed back out to buy locks for my gates. When I got back, this crazy neighbor was now there, demanding why I kicked her kids out. She then tried to remind me of these rules, but I told her to leave immediately, and that my security camera was recording. She then cursed at me for a minute or 2, and then she left. Now, I was bluffing as I did not have security cameras, but I did order them on Amazon that night. The next day was fine, where I replanted a lot of my plants from my apartment's balcony into the empty garden, and it was then that I noticed this crazy neighbor kept looking over the fence. For the following weeks, this neighbor complained about the trees in my yard, the color of the fence, what I'm doing with my stream, etc. Jay occasionally came over and told her to F off, but 3 weeks ago, I left for a couple of days for a friend's wedding, and I kept getting security alerts saying that there was motion in my backyard, and often it was her kids playing in my garden, trampling all of my peppers. I then texted Jay to tell them to get out. Now, if you're wondering why not call the police, well, they wouldn't do anything as they're just some kids. I had a suspicion that this neighbor was telling them to do these things, but I didn't have much evidence. On the drive back, I got a security alert that there was motion in my backyard. I didn't check as I was driving, but when I stopped for gas, I checked and saw this neighbor instructing a plumbing team to install piping from my hot spring into their yard. Well, I saved all the footage from that interaction, and I sent messages to Jay about it. Jay told them that they weren't allowed to be doing that, but since it wasn't his house, they didn't listen to him. I called the police and they went, but they had already installed the piping. In fact, this team was just leaving the gate with my broken lock on the ground when the police showed up. They said that they had been hired by the homeowner. The police waited for me to get there while talking to the team of workers, and I told them that I was the homeowner and that I hadn't paid them to do it. Well, at this point, they looked confused. I then went with the police into my backyard, and I started ripping the unsecured piping out with a crowbar. This crazy neighbor then starts shrieking from her yard and puts her head over the fence and starts yelling that I'm destroying private property and that she would sue me. This neighbor then says that she has a contract with the owner of the house to literally have my hot spring water. Well, the police are now confused. She then shows a contract that read that she was paying me $2 per month in exchange for water. Now, of course, this neighbor won't give it to me so I can look at it, besides waving it around in the air. The police eventually leave and warn me not to destroy the piping, but I ripped up the small pipe that connects to the source as she's telling me that she'll see me in court. I contacted my lawyer and she said that this neighbor has no case as she didn't know my signature and it would be easy to prove that it was forged. And while I still haven't been served by this neighbor's lawyer, I do know that it will be soon. In the meantime, I've been sitting in the hot tub for long baths while talking to myself loudly about how much I love it. And sure, it's petty, but it made me feel good hearing the growls from across the fence. Now, this is the final thing that made me post here. My garden is wilting and dying at an unnatural rate. I heard a commotion come out of this neighbor's yard, and I peeked over and I saw her slowly pouring a massive jug of chemicals into the communal stream, which literally goes down to mine. I don't know if it was a plant killer or something like bleach, but it's rapidly destroying my plants. And I haven't eaten any of the fruit or peppers since I'm worried I might get sick. I think if I can get definitive proof of her doing it, I can maybe use it in court to prove how crazy she is. People swim in pools from the stream, so I warned Jay not to for the time being, and I told him to tell other people. I know one neighbor removed her garden from the soil and moved it away from the stream just in case it got down to hers. I'm unsure of what I should do next. I don't think I live in a two-party consent state for video recording as it doesn't list it as one on the PDF that I found. But honestly, regardless, I feel so annoyed by this that I just seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is some crazy stuff because the original poster has a lot of updates for it, and they literally go through everything from like damming up the stream at the very start of it, as well as testing the pH levels, and then eventually going back and forth between this crazy neighbor, as well as getting lawyers involved. At one point, this psycho neighbor even takes out the original poster's like power, like they go to their house and like flip the breaker. It's like, dude, what is going on right now? This lady is out of her mind if she thinks she can act like this. And apparently this is someone in their 40s. Like, dude, you've got to be a special kind of crazy to be acting like that. I don't know if there's any like substances involved. I know the original poster doesn't mention that, but from the sounds of it, they're going through their lawyer and they're going through the proper steps to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else ever again. Because apparently this has been going on for years. Can you imagine living next to someone like that? Like, I can't. I can't imagine my every waking moment dominated by that weirdo. Like, that would literally just drive me crazy. I couldn't do it. So good for the original poster for taking the steps necessary to protect themselves and their property, because this crazy neighbor truly is just that. They're absolutely insane, and you do not deserve to be treated like this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mom is holding me responsible for the way my younger siblings dress, claiming that my younger siblings are copying me and that I need to fundamentally change how I dress just to make her happy. Here's what's going on. I'm 22 years old and I've been living at home while I finish my last 2 terms of nursing school that I have left. And trust me, it's been very rough here. I'm honestly frustrated. My mom constantly tells me what I wear isn't appropriate and that my younger siblings are copying me. But I really don't think I dress badly or overly revealing. I usually wear maxi skirts, maxi dresses, and yes, I do wear crop tops sometimes, but my overall style leans more towards a boho aesthetic. What I wear fits me well, and while I may have a slight bit of appeal, I don't think I look provocative. I just happen to have curves that I can't exactly control. She told me that she'd prefer I wore my flowy blouses, looser pants, maxi skirts that aren't as fitted, crew neck tops, less jewelry, and less makeup. But the crazy part is that she wears super tight tops with cleavage out, tight clothing in general, and even shorts where her butt is literally hanging out. There was even a time where I wore a maxi tube dress, and she told me that I looked naked, but a couple weeks later, she wore the exact same style dress except hers was way shorter. On top of that, I've noticed some of my clothing has gone missing, and I've seen that she's been stealing and wearing my clothing. And because she's bigger than me, my clothes end up stretched out. I even found some of my things hidden in a bin. When I bring it up, she says stuff like, "I'm grown," and reminds me that when she had had me at 20, she had to change the way she dressed because she had a daughter watching her. But that makes no sense because she has 2 other daughters. But somehow I'm the one who has to change? And honestly, I don't think me changing my wardrobe is going to stop them from wanting to wear those things anyways. I think it's more about their friends and what's popular at school, but when I tell her that, she keeps blaming me, and it's really starting to piss me off. On top of all of that, she keeps making comments about me buying things for myself, and how she couldn't do that because she had me. But I don't constantly spend money or splurge. I buy what I need or occasionally treat myself, and I keep up with my maintenance. And it's not like I don't help out around the house either. I always pitch in when needed. I'm just tired of being made out to be the bad influence when I'm really just trying to live my life. I'm minding my own business and not even doing anything extreme. So has anyone ever dealt with this kind of double standard? How do you deal with it without completely losing your mind? Because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, your mom's obnoxious. She's clearly like projecting in some kind of way because guess what? You're not responsible for your younger siblings. That is such a weird stretch in logic. It just honestly is super annoying. So no, you're not at fault here. You haven't done anything wrong. And if your mom's upset with the way your sisters are dressing, then she needs to start with herself and set a good example instead of trying to shift that blame over to you. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for breaking my friend's phone? All because he broke mine previously and never apologized for it. Because right now I feel like I made a mistake and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, a while ago my friend and I were hanging out, and for the sake of the story, I'll call my friend Alex. Alex is not their real name. We were both in a bit of a stupid mood, and I guess the vibe was off, but nothing too major. At some point I set my phone down on the table, and when I turned my back, Alex accidentally knocked my phone off the table and it landed face first on the floor. The screen cracked and I was pretty upset about it. Like, yeah, accidents happen, but I wasn't thrilled. But here's the thing. Alex didn't apologize or offer to help pay for it, and when I asked him if he was going to do anything about it, he kind of shrugged it off. I was like, okay, cool, whatever, but it felt pretty dismissive. Fast forward a few days and we were hanging out again, and this time Alex's phone was on the same table. This time though, I didn't accidentally knock it off, but I definitely picked it up, slammed it on the floor, and watched the screen shatter. I was furious, and I felt like he needed to understand how annoying it was to have something important broken without even a basic apology. Well, now Alex is really mad at me, saying I went too far and that I should have just talked to him about it instead of escalating things. My other friends are divided, and some think that I had the right to get back at him, but others think that it was childish and that I should have just let it go. So am I the jerk for breaking his phone in return? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Oh my gosh, yeah, you're absolutely the jerk here. You seriously should have talked to him before throwing his phone on the ground like that. That is so inappropriate and incredibly rude. And I'm willing to bet you did way more damage to the phone than just cracking the screen. If it really bothered you that much that he cracked the screen by accident, and from the sounds of it, it really was not on purpose, unlike what you did, then you should have talked to him and said, hey man, this is really not cool. I need you to pay for this. Because seriously, 2 wrongs do not make a right here. And the fact that you felt it was okay to throw his phone on the ground, in my opinion, is completely insane. My manager decides to give me the runaround, all because I was trying to take 2 days off to go to my cousin's wedding. But after she said no, I decided to maliciously comply and get some serious revenge by taking all 23 of my unused PTO days all at once, leaving her to deal with all my work and all the fallout in the process. Here's what happened. So my new manager comes in loud, talking about structure and consistency. Suddenly, there's no work from home, no flexible hours, no swapping PTO. I asked to move 2 days for my cousin's wedding, and she goes on to say, sorry, we can't make exceptions for anyone. It would be unfair. Alright then, so I put in a request for all 23 of my unused PTO days straight through the end of the quarter, with no overlap and no coverage. And you know what? It got approved in like 10 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is fantastic. But after that, a couple days later, she's in full panic mode. She comes to me and says, wait, who's handling your workload? I say to her, I don't know. I assumed you had a plan. No exceptions, right? So she had to cover me and deal with all of the fallout. Stuff piled up, clients got pissy, and 2 people even quit. And I eventually came back to the new human resources memo. It said the following: managers can now approve flexible PTO on a case-by-case basis. So I guess it turns out fair looks different when you're the one getting screwed over. And my boss learned the hard way that she doesn't want to be the one on the receiving end of karma ever again. Oh man, I love this so much because this kind of stuff happens all the time when you've got a new manager who's like, oh yeah, we're gonna change things around here. And it's like, dude, this is never gonna end well. You're only gonna ruin everything for everybody else, and it's gonna be a pain in the neck. So good for you for getting this PTO and using all of it all at once, because the way she was treating you, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for booking my own Airbnb so that I don't have to sleep on a couch for 6 nights? Because after my aunt miscounted, I am now the odd one out. And at this point, I don't know what what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my immediate and extended family have booked a vacation for later in the summer. My aunt who found this place knew the owner and they got a great deal. And my aunt initially said there are 6 bedrooms. 1 room for her and my uncle, 1 room for my parents, 1 room for my cousin and her husband, 1 room for my other cousin and his wife, and 1 room for their kids who are both under 10 years old. Now the last bedroom, you may be wondering, is where my aunt made an innocent mistake in miscounting. There are only 5 bedrooms. They told me that my boyfriend and I will have to sleep on a pull-out couch. I told my parents I would rather not sleep on a couch even if it does pull out. I also don't want to make my boyfriend sleep on the couch with me either, and that's literally for his own privacy. It's in the living room, which is in the middle of everything. I would rather not be woken up to people starting their day, and I would rather not have to change in the bathroom each and every time, or even leave all my stuff in the living room as well. I don't want to change in my parents' room either, because I know I would probably rush so that they would have their own privacy. I don't want to put my luggage in anyone else's room and fill their room with my clutter. The same goes for my boyfriend. I don't want to make him do all that either. My family has never had this big of a vacation all together in such a long time. I would love to be involved and whatnot, but I said I would rather not go if I can't have a room to myself, or I'll book my own place nearby, and I will pay for my part for the main house everyone is in regardless. My mom refused both options as I will apparently ruin the trip if I don't stay under the same roof. If I get my own place to stay, it would solely be to sleep. I plan to be with my family at all other times and events. I don't care about the price of only getting an Airbnb just to sleep. I want my privacy. I haven't mentioned it to my cousins or anyone else yet that I'm considering getting my own place as close as possible though. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, this really is unfair for you and I don't blame you for being pissed off. I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the same way. I would feel very slighted and very pissed off because I'm right there with you. I want my own space that I can do whatever I want with. So for them to be like, oh, you'll just sleep on the pull-out couch and no, you can't go anywhere else. It's like, no, that's not gonna happen. If I want to book my own Airbnb, I absolutely can do that and nobody's gonna tell me otherwise. So no, you would not be the jerk in my opinion, and I think if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing. Am I the jerk for always dumping lemon juice all over my food? Because one girl I was on a trip with complained that when she tried to eat my leftovers, they were way too soaked in lemon juice to be edible, leaving me wondering if I'm the one at fault here, or if she should not have been sniffing around at my food in the first place. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I might be the jerk here, and I will accept my judgment regardless of what it really is. I grew up in a big household where all food and leftovers were fair game, even when I became old enough to buy my own food. To combat this, I started absolutely drowning my food in lemon juice. I could tolerate the taste and even grew to quite like it. So because of this, no one would touch my prepared foods or leftovers. It's a habit that I've carried well into my adulthood. I recently went on a large trip with some girlfriends. The Airbnb and excursions are evenly split. Food is paid for by ourselves because some people have specialty allergies. We have been going out to dinner the last few nights, and I always ask for extra lemons at the table. That way I can soak my food before eating. After a couple of days into the trip, one of the girls complained at breakfast that I was making food inedible to other people. Now this was news to me since the only food I was lemoning was my restaurant leftovers that I would eat the next day. Now what apparently had been happening since the first night was that one of the girls, namely the one who complained, stays up later than the rest of us and would eat or pick at any leftovers, disregarding the names on the containers. After trying my food on 2 separate occasions, she realized what I was doing and was pissed off. I said that she shouldn't be eating other people's foods that weren't communal, and she said to me, well, it's just how the rest of us feel. But no one else at the table said anything and the breakfast was really tense. Later on, while getting ready to go out, the other girls told me that they didn't like their leftovers being eaten, and they were glad that I said something but didn't want tensions going forward. That night at dinner, I purposefully lemoned my food again. The complainer made an angry noise and stormed off to the bathroom. I didn't say anything, and the rest of our dinner continued normally without her, until she came back out sniffling before we left the restaurant. She even gave me dirty looks the entire ride back. I am exhausted by this nonsense drama, but maybe I am being the jerk here. So truly, am I at fault? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your friend's an idiot. She literally decided to start eating all of your food and be like, wow, this is not to my liking. And it's like, yeah, no kidding. You shouldn't be eating my food in the first place. And even your friends agree with you, but they're too much of a coward to speak up and say anything. So no, you're not the jerk at all. If you want to pour lemon juice all over your food, then guess what? That's your right. It's your food after all. And the fact that this one lady is trying to complain about it and be like, the rest of us don't like that. She's clearly trying to speak for everybody in the group, even though that is definitely not true. true. And that truly is super obnoxious. My entitled father-in-law oversteps his boundaries by trying to walk in the middle of my wife giving birth. But after turning him away and dealing with instances similar to this, my father-in-law decided to go on the attack by talking trash about me and my wife on Facebook simply because we asked for some space while my wife was giving birth. And I seriously can't believe the way this guy acted, and I really hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened about 8 years ago when my wife and I had our firstborn child as a natural birth. My wife's biological father wanted to be there and came like 2 weeks before the due date. He even got a place within walking distance of our house, so he would randomly show up to hang out with her, literally during her time at home on maternity leave as well. Now, this wasn't every day, but it was often enough that it annoyed her as it was always without warning. He also asked her a few times to go and drive him to the bottle shop just so we could stock up on booze. She ended up being a few weeks late, and he seemed to blame us for that just a little bit. Then when the day came and we went to the hospital, we got there at 7 and our daughter was born at 10. He then appeared at the door at 10:15, trying to get in while we were still sorting things out. Like my wife did just give birth after all. He then came back later when it finally calmed down and it was fine. Fast forward a week and he was still staying nearby. My wife was struggling with breastfeeding, so we had an in-house consultation with a midwife to come over and see if they could help us through this time. Well, 5 minutes into this, we hear a knock at the door, and at this point, I lost my cool with him. I went out to the front and I basically asked him, "Do you ever call first?" When I said that, he apologized and then he went home. And I really do feel pretty awful about that, but it was a stressful time, especially with someone else trying to enter the mix. Jump ahead 3 years and baby number 2 is on the way. And once again, my wife's father wanted to be here when it happened. But this time, we told him straight up that we don't want a repeat of what happened last time, and that he needs to please respect our privacy and boundaries. Well, baby number 2 was inverted, so we needed to get a C-section. We booked it, we gave the people the date, but also said we will invite everyone to the hospital once we are ready for visitors and the operation is complete. Eventually, my son is born, and we get back to the room for recovery, and my wife is with the midwives literally cleaning her up and getting her settled. But as that's happening, we hear a knock at the door, and it's her dad once again. And at this point, we just roll our eyes and go with it, as it seems he will never learn. But then things take a twist. My son has a respiratory issue that starts to become an issue the next morning. So he gets rushed to ICU, goes into an iron lung-like device, and my wife and I spend the next week pretty much by his side. And during this time, my 3-year-old daughter has come to visit once or twice with my mom, who is also staying close by. Well, my wife's father gets jealous that he does not get to see our 3-year-old child or even his new grandson. So he decides to post on Facebook that we are shutting him out and that his entire trip was a waste, all because we're supposedly denying him access to his grandkids. But you know what? He was literally the last thing we were thinking about during that week. About a week after this, my son is stable, and the main issue seems to have sorted itself out, and we can finally take him home. By this point, my wife's dad has flown back to his hometown and has another go on Facebook, and all of his side of the family has turned on us just a little bit. My wife then details what happened in a post, and his support dried up pretty quickly once the full story got out. It took about 3 years after this before he got back in good terms with us, and my wife was pretty much done, but I went to bat for him to give him another shot, and we thankfully have not had a repeat like that ever since. And hopefully, for the sake of me and my family, it stays like that for as long as possible. Wow, the father-in-law in this story oversteps so many boundaries. For starters, the fact that he showed up right after your wife gave birth, and she's sitting there literally exposed after going through probably the hardest thing she's ever gone through. Like, not only do I wonder how he even got back there in the first place, but also that is so rude and obnoxious. And the original poster and his wife have it right. Why can't this guy ever call ahead of time to see if this is a good time? Because I don't know about you, but I despise drop-ins. Like, especially when it's something like super stressful that I'm going through, or some kind of like life event. For me personally, I would rather have somebody call ahead of time to see if this is a good time, instead of dropping by unannounced and just completely interrupting something that is probably really hard for me right now. So honestly, I think the way you guys handled this was perfect, and I'm so glad that you guys defended yourself and put the record straight. Because even though the father-in-law in this story is finally behaving himself, this will hopefully be a lesson that this guy won't forget anytime soon. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I feel that my job is overworking me and neglecting any of its responsibilities to help its employees. And now that I'm receiving less tips as a server, I'm starting to reconsider if this job is even right for me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. happened. So to start things out, I work for a hotel as a breakfast server for the buffet. I work the standard 40 hours a week, and I start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I get gratuity and some cash and card tips whenever. But the thing is, nobody wants to work there. Everyone wants to work at the restaurant because tips are way better, and the managers don't want to work in my section because they don't get any tips. They always schedule random people or servers from the restaurant just to get extra hours. They literally come for 5 hours just to bus tables and fill, and then many times they just disappear. Like they go to the restroom or they sit in the counter chair, and I'm working my butt off, and then I get all the responsibility, such as from my manager taking pictures if an area is dirty. We get many people coming in, maybe about 200 people per day overtaking things. And then, yeah, of course, people leave, and they get like 40% of my gratuity. They're not restocking anything, they're not taking any of the trash out, and then we sometimes open in the evening, and the night shift barely sets anything up. Sometimes some people no show, no call, and they still have the job and get no write-up. Most of them are friends, and the managers are hanging out with them and drinking, so they just don't even care. I talked to one of the managers, but yeah, they definitely didn't care. There's no food or beverage director, and they can barely hire anybody. They hired another new manager, and she told me how it's been crazy, and that people are not showing up, and then nothing happens. Before, I would work with another manager, and all the tips would go to me. But now that I pull my money, everything's decreased. I used to make about $1,000 a week in tips, but now I make maybe $400 to $500. Now, I like the place, but I am overworked, and people throw responsibility on me and just don't do anything. And now I'm making less money. What should I do? Okay, for starters, I don't think you actually like your job. Like, everything you mentioned in this story is literally negative. These people are clearly taking advantage of your willingness to work, and they're also literally not even taking the time to do their job. Like, I can understand why people are quitting and not showing back up. They're not supporting their staff, and they're literally doing very little to help people out. Like, for all intents and purposes, this does not sound like a good work environment at all. So if I was in your shoes, I would be reconsidering working here in the first place. They don't sound like a good working environment, and honestly, you can find way better than this. And I totally understand your frustrations, by the way, especially when you're the only one doing your job and trying to like get things done. So hopefully you can find something better than this, because the job you're describing sounds absolutely awful. An entitled Karen and her husband screams and cries at me and my coworkers, all because she feels that our prices are too expensive at our family-owned restaurant. Here's what happened. So I work at a small family-owned barbecue restaurant. It's set up like Subway, where you go down the line and order what you want, and then we ring you up and take your payment at the end. I will say though that the food is hot and fresh and definitely good quality. Now, it's not cheap, but we certainly have plenty of people willing to pay the prices. My bosses, namely the husband and the wife who own the restaurant, are genuinely good people who try to keep the prices reasonable while also trying to be able to keep paying their employees a livable wage and give us benefits. Anyways, the other night, this entitled couple came in. As soon as you walk in, there are two large TV screens right next to each other with our menus posted on them. One lists the sandwiches and the other one lists the plates. Obviously, the plates are more expensive because it is a lot more meat, plus it comes with sides. And we do also sell all of our meats by the pound, and this is clearly stated on the menu, so you can order smaller portions of meat if you want to. But anyways, both the husband and wife ordered brisket plates, and the brisket is the most expensive meat, but also the most popular that everybody raves about. The brisket plate is $20, and apparently the wife did not know this. As I rang them up at the end, she let out a surprised gasp as she looked at what I rang up on the screen and demanded to know why they were being charged $20 per plate when the menu said that they were only $10.99. She apparently had only looked at the section of the menu that listed the sandwiches because the brisket sandwich is $10.99. And I would really like to know what decade she's living in if she thinks a half pound of brisket and two sides would be $10.99. You can barely even get a meal at McDonald's for that cheap anymore. Well, this is how the conversation went. I said to her, "Oh, the $10.99 is for the sandwich. The plates are more expensive because they automatically come with the sides." She said to me, "Well, I didn't see anything else on the menu other than those prices for the sandwiches. This is ridiculous. We definitely won't be coming back here. And you didn't charge us for anything extra?" I looked at her and I said, "No, ma'am, I did not." She then lets out a frustrated huff as she says to me, "So it really costs almost $50 for two people to eat here?" But I said to her, "Well, that depends on what you order. Brisket is our most expensive meat, but we have several cheaper options." This entitled Karen then looks at her husband. "Well, do we even have that kind of money?" Now, the husband, who has been silent the whole time, sheepishly pulls out three $20 bills and hands them to me. She then says, loud enough for me to hear, "Wow, no wonder they're parking lot is empty. And you know what? For reference, it was actually only about 20 minutes before closing time, which was the only reason our parking lot was ever empty. Because in reality, we had just gotten through a very busy dinner rush earlier in the evening with plenty of people who would gladly pay $20 for brisket. So trust me, if they never come back, they definitely would not be missed. Yeah, I will never understand someone who goes into like a family-run restaurant and tries to start some kind of weird argument, especially after they don't read the menu. Like seriously, I'm pretty sure it's well explained that yes, the option you're getting is more expensive for this reason. And it's so funny that they try to take shots at your restaurant, even though you guys were ready to lock up. They first come in with this weird attitude, then they say they're never coming back, only to then insult the place that's giving you dinner. So hopefully they don't come back, because that kind of attitude is awful, and I would hate for you to have to deal with that for a second time. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that he couldn't buy another $300 reptile after he lost a different one that he bought literally 5 weeks ago? Here's what happened. So my husband and I were butting heads for about 6 months because he wanted to buy a snake, and I did not want one in the house at all. I finally broke down and said that if he got one, I wanted nothing to do with it, and that it had to be in the basement. Well, he ended up spending about $800 on all the stuff for the snake, and the snake escaped the enclosure within 24 hours of getting it. Mind you, this snake cost $250 alone, and this was 5 weeks ago, and we still haven't found it. So now he has decided he wants to get some sort of exotic lizard that will be around $350, plus he is going to need a few more accessories for it. He also said that it will outgrow the current enclosure that was meant for the snake within the year, and that he will need to purchase a bigger one in the future. I then started expressing my annoyance at how expensive this is getting, and I then asked him if he could just get something smaller and not as expensive. He then started ranting about how I pay $200 a month for a gym membership, and that I can do that but won't let him get a reptile. But I don't think a gym membership and a reptile are even on the same level. My gym membership is for my health, an investment that will pay for itself over time. I go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week, so it's not like I'm paying for it and not using it. It's a CrossFit type of gym with instructor-led classes. I've lost 28 pounds since January, and finally I'm feeling better about my body. So to me, this reptile is something he wants and not needs. It would be like me spending $1,000 on a new pair of shoes or something like that. So am I the jerk for not letting him spend another couple $100 on a second reptile because we lost the first one, even though I spend $200 a month on a gym membership? What should I do? Okay, this story is insane to me because seriously, there's like a glaring detail that needs to be addressed. Where in the world did the snake go? You don't just get a snake and say, oh no, I lost it. Time to get something else, it's fine. Like no, I would be tearing my house apart trying to find that stupid snake. I wouldn't be able to sleep, go to the bathroom, or literally do anything in that house until that snake is identified and caught. Like why was that not a priority for this guy? Why wouldn't he be like, wow, I spent, I don't know, $1,000 getting this set up. Maybe I should try to find this snake and not waste all this money for nothing. Like for him to go on to like the next exotic animal without first addressing this issue is insane in my opinion. And you know what? Him trying to compare your gym membership to his stupid pets is just as stupid as you think it sounds. It really doesn't make any sense, and there's really no good excuse for that. Because like you said, your gym membership and these pets are not the same thing. One of them is for your health and the other one is just because, I don't know, he wants it. So no, you are not the jerk for shutting him down, because the way he's been acting, in my opinion, is absolutely insane. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for demanding my payment from my sister-in-law for an art commission that she hired me for? Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I do digital art commissions, and I can make stickers and prints or just digital copies. My wife, who's 20 years old, has a brother, and that brother has a girlfriend. I made a drawing for my wife for free, and my sister-in-law asked for a drawing. It was something new for me, but I accepted and I took the request, warning her that this would cost her some money. But with that in mind, my prices are cheap, and I can wait for any kind of payment, especially if I know them. After I gave her the art that she asked for, I told her my payment options and how much, maybe 15 to 20 bucks, and she said that she just started her new job and that she gets paid in 3 days. And you know what? I was fine with waiting. Fast forward to 3 days later, and I finally asked her, and she said she couldn't because she had to pay rent because they still live with my wife's parents. So I waited 2 more weeks and then I talked to my wife. I asked her if she thought that I would get paid, and she gave me the truth. She said that she doesn't think that they're late on rent, but instead she's wasting all of her money online just shopping for stuff. Now at this point, I got upset. I waited a day or two and then I texted her and I said the following. Hey there, I just wanted to see if you had gotten paid yet. at because I've been told that you aren't known to pay dues. I really need that money and it's not expensive. Please and thank you. Well, she gave me the money and later on went screaming to my wife's brother, to which he took his anger out on my wife. I felt so bad for making my sister-in-law mad because my wife had a good relationship with her brother and my sister-in-law almost left him. I've had people tell me that I was the jerk for not waiting longer and for saying it in the way that I did. So I need to know, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? First of all, of course you're not the jerk. Why on earth would this lady ask for an art commission if she was not ready to pay the artist in the first place? That literally is so backwards it's not even funny. And it's not fair for the original poster to put all this work into an art piece only to then be forced to like chase down this person and figure out if they're even gonna pay you or not. Like if you're really struggling with rent and all this other money problems, then maybe you shouldn't be hiring an artist to make you some kind of artwork. Like talk about completely burning a bridge right in front of you, because if I was the original poster, I would never take another art request from that lady. Like she would be blacklisted in my opinion. Also, I would not feel bad about this at all. Is this sister-in-law seriously getting upset because she had to pay for something that she hired you for? Like seriously, what's her problem? Just pay the $20 and move on with your life. It is literally not that much. And it's not like she didn't know the price ahead of time. Like she literally knew, okay, this is super cheap and I can probably do this. So in my opinion, no, you are definitely not the jerk, because what you're asking honestly should have been taken care of like right away. And for you to have to wait weeks just to get any kind of payment, in my opinion, is a really messed up thing to do. Am I the jerk for telling my parents exactly how I feel about our families, especially considering how complicated everything's become? Here's what happened. Okay, it's important to note that my parents are messy people. They were together for years, had my brother, and then broke up when he was 8, but stayed married, just not living together. And neither of them filed for divorce. They ended up getting back together after a few years, and then they had me. But they were over for good by the time I was 1 year old and had finally filed for divorce. Both of them got into other relationships and then cheated on those relationships with each other before finally settling into the marriages they're currently in. I was 8 when my mom got married and 10 when my dad got married. And those relationships started 2 to 3 years before the marriages. My mom's husband had 2 kids when he met my mom, with both of them being younger than me. And together they had 2 more kids who are now 7 and 4 years old. My dad's wife had 3 kids technically when they got married, with one being her stepkid, who sees her as her mom, and the other 2 are her biological kids from the marriage with the stepkid's father. Together they have a 5-year-old, and they also have taken in my wife's 2 nephews from her sibling who passed away, and they decided to adopt them. There has been this tug of war between both sides for literally as long as I can remember them being together. My brother got out of all of it, and he could do that by the time it all really started popping off. But I was stuck in the middle of it. My mom and dad wanted me to prefer their side and shove their kids and stepkids down my throat so I would have a stronger relationship with either side. They compete for me to show the most attention to their family. They make it into something crazy and way too complicated. Like I'm supposed to see dad's side as true siblings, even the non-biological ones, and somehow love them more than anything else according to my dad. And according to my mom, it's her side that I have to feel that way about. They have always asked which siblings I prefer, or they ask leading questions about which side I prefer, where it's not directly asking me that, but you know that's what it's about. 2 days ago, we had this meeting with people from my school. It's my senior year, and I'm a part of an educational program for school for speech and reading. During the meeting, they brought personal stuff into it, and it spilled out more once we left. They directly asked me which siblings I prefer and who I'm closest to, and they also wanted to know how I really feel about everything and so much more. So I said exactly what was on my mind. I told them that my brother is the only sibling that I really love, that he's my favorite family member, and really it's the only sibling that I have a connection to, and that I see him way more than they realize. And when I said that, they were completely shocked, not only about my answer, but the fact that my brother and I stayed close and see each other when he doesn't even see any of the other kids. And it was right then that my parents got incredibly pissed. They started yelling, and that's when I told them that they can't ask questions and then blow up at me when they don't like the answers. But my parents said they can do what they like as my parents, and they even made it another big deal yesterday, where I had my mom on the phone, and since I was at my dad's, he was also bothering me about it. So am I the jerk for the way that I answered my parents' question? Because right now I am exhausted dealing with the way they treat me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, let me just say first and foremost that this is probably one of the most complicated family situations I've ever heard of. Quite literally, you have so many step siblings it's not even funny, and the fact that you're somehow supposed to keep track of that on top of, like, I don't know, entertaining both sides of the family must be incredibly stressful and so hard to deal with. Like, I'm starting to understand why your brother was like, no, I'm definitely not dealing with that. Because if I was in his shoes, I would be like, wow, I dodged a train. This is a disaster waiting to happen, and seriously, I would be glad to be away from that. But you don't have that luxury. The original poster is 17 years old, and they are literally stuck in between two families, and it is simply not fair. Because you should not be forced to pick a side. If your parents were doing this right, and they weren't trying to use you as some kind of like bargaining chip to prove the other person wrong, then they would be supportive of you and trying to figure your life out, because they literally made everything so complicated. So I can say if I was in your shoes, I probably would have reacted the same way. I would have chosen my brother as well, just so neither party can ever win any of these arguments that you never wanted to be a part of, because their behavior right now is incredibly inappropriate, and you do not deserve to go through this kind of stress in the slightest. My friend lied to me about having cancer, all in some weird attempt to try and see if I even care about him in the first place. But now our friendship is practically ruined, as I am now highly considering blocking him and never talking to him ever again. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories, and don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Jerk. Okay, just for a bit of context, I'm a 17-year-old male, and my friend, who we will call Jack, is 16 years old. For a while, I've had braces because of my underbite, and when Jax called me, my dad was driving me home from my dentist appointment, which Jack absolutely knew I had at the time, and he's almost perfect every time at guessing when I'm done with them. On the way home, he FaceTimed me while I was laying in bed. He was groaning, and he actually looked really sick, and when I asked him what was wrong, he told me straight up, I have cancer. I sat there for a second thinking about what he just said. He wasn't on speakerphone, but since I was sitting next to my dad in front of him, my dad asked me if anything was wrong, and I just said no and went back to Jack. I then asked him, are you serious? Which he responded by saying yes. I then asked him if he was in the hospital, and he said no again, to which I responded by saying, okay, well, why not? Does nobody know what's going on? He then told me, oh, after they gave me this thing that is attached to my arm, they let me go home. After he said that, I knew that something was off. So I asked him, okay, could you show me the thing on your arm? To which he said, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So at this point, I thought he must be going through it right now, so I just didn't want to push it. So I told him that I had to go, and that I would call him back later on, and to please get better soon. After I hung up, I told my dad that my friend just called me and said that he had cancer. My dad then asked me if I was sure, and I said yes. Well, 1 week later, I get a call from my other friend, who we will call Aaron, and Aaron is in the friend group with me, him, and Jack. And apparently, Jack had called him and said that he had COVID, but I cut him off and said, yes, I know he has cancer. To which Aaron responded by saying, okay, but I thought he had COVID. Well, once I heard that, I knew that Jack had been lying to me. So I told Aaron that Jack was definitely lying, and he said that he already knew that because he had just been in his house yesterday, and there were no signs of anything that would prove that he was even sick. So me and Aaron came up with a plan to get him to confess, but the day that we were going to go through with our plan, I get a notification from Jack. Aaron was with me in the house, so I brought my phone to him, and we read it all together. The text was from Jack, and he was confessing that he lied and he was sorry. Now, I was happy he confessed, but then what he did actually sank in, and I was absolutely pissed. The main reason I was mad was that, for starters, my uncle died to cancer when I was very young. Secondly, his excuse for it was to say, I just wanted to see if you cared about me. So after this, me and Aaron stopped talking to him. Aaron blocked him, but I didn't, because I feel like I was too harsh, and every now and then, I text him something, still trying to figure out why he did it, because I don't believe he only did it because he thought I didn't care about him. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna say it straight up. Your friend Jack is a massive piece of crap. First of all, anyone who's like, oh yeah, I have cancer, and then turns around and says, oh yeah, I was lying to see if you actually care about me. Like, that is such a horrible thing to do. It legitimately has no good excuse. I don't even care that this guy's a teenager. That is not something you joke about or even like lie about in any capacity. And I honestly think that anyone who would lie about having cancer is a massive piece of garbage. And that's my honest opinion, because just like the original poster, I've also had family members who've been affected by cancer, and that is just downright offensive to lie about. So for him to do this is really just so disrespectful, and if that was me, I would lose trust in him completely after that. Like, what else is he lying about just to gain attention? Because legitimately, that's all this was. He was just doing some weird attention-seeking behavior in probably one of the worst ways possible. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for pulling away from him, and I think your friend Aaron is really smart in this scenario for straight up blocking him, because I really believe that this is not someone you want to call your friend, and I think you can absolutely do better than somebody who lies about having cancer. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my daughter try and pursue swimming as a professional career by telling her that it's too late to even get started? Because right now, my husband is very upset with me, and at this point, I seriously do not know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 45-year-old female and I have 2 kids. I have a 16-year-old female that we will call Laura and a 14-year-old male that we will call Kyle. Both of my kids take competitive swimming as a hobby. However, Laura is more athletically inclined than Kyle is and takes swimming more seriously than he does. She has been to regional and state championships a few times since elementary school and has even gotten close to qualifying for nationals a year ago. Recently, Laura came up to me and told me that she really looks up to athletes like Michael Phelps and other great swimming legends in Australia and across the globe. She is a huge Olympics fanatic like our family, so I wasn't surprised at first. However, she then told me that she wanted to pursue swimming professionally because, in her words, she's made a lot of progress and thinks it's possible for her to get to the Olympics if she just keeps training harder. She also told me she really wants to represent Australia at the Olympics in the future and that she cannot live without swimming. However, I shut her down really quickly after she said that. I told her that there's athletes younger than her already swimming at the Olympics in the preliminary stages and even at the finals. I reminded her that Michael Phelps was only 15 years old at his first Olympics and she didn't even qualify for nationals. And then I finally said that it was a bit late for her to try and pursue swimming professionally. I then reminded her how rigorous and strict the training was, both physically and mentally, how it was much more different than her swimming lessons. I also told her that she could put aside swimming until university and that education was much more effective than athleticism. Well, after I said that, my daughter looked sad and nodded before heading to her dad's room, and I heard crying in his room. After half an hour had passed, my husband came downstairs and confronted me by saying that what I told my daughter was extremely cruel and it put down her self-esteem significantly. I retaliated back, saying that I was only expressing concern for Laura and that my concerns were realistic. After I told my husband my thoughts, we got into a bit of a dispute because, in my husband's words, my daughter's dreams were very realistic and that I shouldn't police my daughter's career autonomy. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for what I said to my daughter? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna take a pretty firm stance here and say that yes, you are absolutely the jerk. Your daughter is 16 years old. She has her entire life ahead of her when it comes to figuring out a career. So for you to shoot down her dreams like that all at the drop of a hat and then have the audacity to compare her to Michael Phelps and be like, well, he made it to the Olympics at 15 and you didn't even qualify for nationals. That really sucks, and I really cannot believe you would do that to your own kid. This would be different if they were 26 and they said, oh, I want to be a competitive swimmer. At that point, I would agree if you said, okay, it's way too late to do this. You need to figure your life out, and this is not the time to pursue something new like this. But that's not what your daughter's doing. You don't know what kind of future she could have in swimming. She very easily could excel and be a really good swimmer on an international stage. And by the way, if you're really from Australia, the fact that she's coming close to getting into nationals, in my opinion, is a huge deal. Australia has some of the best swimmers on the planet. Who's to say she wouldn't break through in her senior year of high school, make it into the national competition, and then excel from there? You definitely don't know that. And who's to say that she wouldn't use her swimming to go to college? The way you handle this was completely inappropriate and very cruel. Your husband is 100% right. So yes, I think you're the jerk, and I think you really should apologize to your daughter because she is still young and she has every right to dream just as much as anybody. Am I the jerk for telling my father that he's no longer allowed to cook for my kids after he tried to cook us meat that expired over 3 years ago? Because right now, my dad is very offended, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female, and my father shops like a doomsday prepper. Whenever he gets groceries, he buys enough to feed a family of 5. He's also the type to buy food that he doesn't plan on eating anytime soon, and he has it just in case he might crave it. And trust me, this has always been a problem. When I was younger, my sister and I spent more time at our mom's place, and we weren't there often enough to eat much. Nowadays, he lives alone, so even less of what he buys is even eaten. The result has always been the same. A lot of the food that he buys ends up either spoiled or sitting in a freezer until the end of time. We've never eaten anything that's rotten or moldy, but my dad has always refused to listen when I tell him this is bad for his health. My family went to his place for dinner about a week ago, and I arrived to help my father out as he planned on making burgers, and my husband would come later with our kids. I had offered to buy some burgers when we decided on them, but my father said that he had some at his place. I didn't think anything about what that could mean until I saw him pull out a box of burgers and some cheese from the very bottom of the freezer. Now, as both had clearly been there for a while, I checked the expiration expiration dates. The cheese expired in February, and the burgers expired in March of 2021. I asked my father if he actually planned on cooking that food, and he said yes, as both were frozen and still fine to eat according to him. I told him I didn't care how edible he thought the food was. The meat was older than my daughter. We could think about something else to make, or I could have my husband pick up some burgers on his way to my dad's place, but I am not having my kids eat that. Well, when I said that, my father got offended. He started going on about how the food was safe and how a dozen nutritionists had said so, but these are literally some guys his girlfriend found on TikTok. He said he couldn't believe I didn't trust him. He continued talking about how dramatic I was being for a while, but I was very upset at the way he responded. Finally, I said to him, my kids aren't eating that, and I don't want you cooking for them again. Either my husband buys the burgers or we are not staying for dinner. Well, eventually, my husband ended up buying the burgers, and we ate them peacefully, and no one fought in front of the kids. The next day, my father told me he was upset by what I said. He said he felt offended that I'd accused him of putting his grandchildren in danger like that, but I told him that wasn't my intention. I just didn't want to feed my kids 3-year-old meat, but he just refused to listen to me. My dad's still insisting that I'm the one being dramatic. My husband is completely on my side, but thinks forbidding my father from cooking for our children might have been a little bit too much. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because there is no way I'm eating 3-year-old meat. That should have been rotated around, and he should have used that way sooner than March 2021. And by the way, that's just when it expired. Sometimes this meat is good for like a year and a half, so I'm willing to guess that he probably bought this back in like, I don't know, 2018 or 2019 or something like that. And that would be especially true if it's like packaged and it's meant to be stored for a long time. But regardless, if something expired back in 2021, there's no way I'm ever going to eat it, because in my opinion, this is just further proof that your father's being irresponsible with his food. If someone wants to have a large supply of food storage, then go for it, but they need to be responsible with it and actually use the food that they have in their storage. Otherwise, you're going to look up and have 3-year-old meat sitting in your freezer. So no, I don't blame you for denying him ever cooking that food for you, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. An entitled jerk demands that I turn down my music on my property, as he claims that it's too loud and that the lyrics are way too vulgar. So I decide to maliciously comply by loudly playing opera music from my 12-inch subs on my car in a way that he could never possibly ignore. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I need to give some information. This happened over 12 years ago at my family's house when I was about 22 years old, and I was passionate about my old SUV that I had painted a metallic red with neon lights underneath and had on 22-inch chrome rims and a decent stereo that you could hear about a quarter-mile away. Our neighbors themselves paid absolutely no attention to anything going on outside their doors, and although we are all friendly and any one of us would drop what we are doing to help one of us in need, in 20 years, you can count the conversations that we've exchanged without taking off your shoes, and we all have our own little hobbies. One of them has goats and chickens, another keeps bees, and one across the road repairs lawnmowers, ATVs, and such, and I never do anything that would normally invite onlookers. But one Saturday afternoon, I was changing the oil and spark plugs on my SUV with a beer and some Cheetos in our driveway, and I had a tiny speaker hooked up to my phone playing some old school rap. And on that day, the lady on our left was having some landscaping and yard work done. I was rolling around under my truck on my back, literally elbows deep in the greasy mess, and a little irritated because I had just dropped my 10mm socket, but as I did that, I see some steel-toed leather boots walking the 30 feet up to my driveway and up to my Suburban. I roll out from underneath my car and I gave the guy a very confused look. Well, he straight up just told me to turn the music down because he didn't like the vulgar and violent lyrics. And seriously, it's like gospel music must be the only music he ever listens to. And I know for a fact that this little speaker couldn't possibly be legible to anybody 50 feet away, especially if he's concentrating on cutting shrubs and planting flowers and such. Despite my passions, I'm not a complete jerk. So I say to him, okay, no problem. I'll take care of it as soon as I get my hands wiped off. Have a good day. He then stomped away in a fit, muttering some awful things underneath his breath. And when I heard some of the vulgar things that he was saying, that really sickened me. But it was right then that I had a brilliant idea. I immediately turned off my tiny speaker playing Underground Kings and pulled out the battery jump box, put it on my truck's battery, and went inside my house and got my opera CD collection and rolled down all the windows to unveil my 4 12-inch subs and 8 6-inch mids, and I put on The Valkyrie by Wagner and unleashed the stereo's 2,000 watts and went back under the SUV to finish draining the oil. Now, the look on this guy's face was priceless. I guess he didn't think that someone like me had a taste for opera, which is not usually something I bring out on a hot day of rolling around in the oil, but I do enjoy it when I'm relaxing in my den sometimes. After about 20 minutes, I was done with the tune-up, and I started up the car and decided to drive it up and down the road just to make sure that the oil level was settled. I parked back in my driveway, shutting everything down, and as I put everything away, I see the landscaping truck leaving without taking the time to close his tailgate, and by some kind of sweet karma, some of his tools rolled out as he slammed the gas pedal, and it was right then that I had to turn around so he wouldn't see my ear-to-ear grin. 2 days later, while taking out the trash, I waved to the neighbor lady who was having tea on the porch, and I explained what happened, and I wanted to apologize if I caused her any problems with her landscaper. Well, that sweet old lady just laughed and said, "Oh, that guy's a jerk anyways," and he even tells her grandson to lower the volume on his video games if he's ever over at her house while he's working. But even though I still see the same landscaping truck on occasion, I'm sure that this guy won't be forgetting me anytime soon. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that if someone's not bothering you and they're doing something that's literally away from you and they might be making like a little bit of noise, then you have no right to go over there and be like, "You need to turn all your music down. You need to be quiet. You're disturbing me." Like, no, that is not how this works, especially if they're on their own property and it's like a normal time of day. Now, if this guy was playing music that was really loud in the middle of the night and you were somehow like a neighbor or something along those lines, then sure, it's time for them to be quiet. But if they're out on their own property, literally fixing up their car and trying to get something done, and you walk over there all disgruntled and say, "You've got to turn it all down," then in my opinion, you are in the wrong and you absolutely deserve to be humiliated and put in your place. An entitled Karen freaks out on me after she tried to buy alcohol for her son who very clearly could have been underage. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of information about me, I don't really drink or do any kind of substances, and I've been homeless for a while, but I managed to find myself a job. And this situation literally just happened to me. I was sitting at the counter, as my job involves renting boats and cottages, but we do have a storefront that sells beer, fishing supplies, boat rentals, and food. A person came up to the counter with a 24-pack of beer and tried to buy it. The guy looked young, maybe under 19 years old. And for reference, I'm Canadian, so you need to be 19 to purchase alcohol. This guy didn't have any identification, so I told him that I couldn't sell him booze. Well, he clapped back at me, saying it's okay because he's 20. But I told him I can't sell you anything without an ID. No ID, no sale. So at this point, he really started to talk down to me, saying he's old enough and told me not to make him go get it. He then pointed to his car and said that he's busy. So I said to them, "Okay, so you're driving without a license?" And when I said that, this guy got flustered and finally left the store. About 30 minutes later, this older woman walks in and I see the kid from before outside. She grabbed a 24-pack and came to the counter. She pointed outside and asked if I was the person who wouldn't sell her kid any beer. And I just said, "Yes, if you don't have an ID, I'm not going to sell it." She huffed at me and said, "Whatever," and then tried to make her purchase. So I asked her, "Does your kid have his ID on him now?" But she said no, that she's buying the beer. But I said, "Unfortunately, I can't sell it to you without him having an ID." This lady then started to scream at me, saying that she's in her 40s and that she has her license. But that's when I explained that I couldn't sell her alcohol, knowing that she's giving it to a potentially minor or someone without an ID. She then screamed and called me a moron. She flipped me off and said that she was going to call corporate to complain about me. I told her, "Ma'am, it's a small business, but I'll happily give you the owner's number." Well, she eventually left and I called the owner to explain everything. And trust me, she was not even mad. Instead, she laughed and said that I handled it perfectly. Yeah, I think you handled that perfectly as well. And honestly, I think the fact that this Karen seriously thought she could buy alcohol for this kid without ever trying to account for his age or even him having an identification in the first place, like that is crazy to me, and that is not the mark of a good mother. So good for you for standing your ground and not letting her break the law and probably get you in trouble. Because if something went wrong, I guarantee you this absolutely would have fallen on your shoulders. Would I be the jerk if I said no to my parents moving into mine and my husband's house that we are literally renovating as we speak? Here's what happened. My husband and I recently got married in January of 2024 and have been waiting to move into our own 3-bedroom apartment that is still going through renovations that's taking longer than expected. My husband moved into my dad's 1-bedroom apartment after we got married, as no one else has been living there except for me. I've also been paying rent ever since I started working. For context, my dad has been living in a rented, semi-detached home with his stepmom and her mother ever since he remarried 7 years ago. They also have a male tenant living with them in the house who is rarely home due to his working hours. Also, my dad's mother-in-law owns a studio apartment that is currently vacant. A few months ago, my dad came to us and told us that the owners of their rental house house, wants it back to undergo renovations, and then renting it at a higher value, which my parents clearly cannot afford. While my husband and I were house hunting, we brought it up to my dad and offered to let them stay with us and at no cost. Well, he declined, as he said my stepmom would not feel comfortable having to live with another guy at close proximity, namely my husband. Also, it's too far from her siblings and the city center, and she is used to living in landed properties, so an apartment would be too small for her. We also offered to move out of his house so that they can move in, but he declined, as there is only one bedroom and her mom insists on following my stepmom wherever she goes, even though she has her own house. Well, yesterday, my dad sat me and my husband down to let us know that he will be moving in with us to our new home, as time is running out for them, and that they'll move out after 4 months once the renovations are done. However, my dad told us that it will be him, my stepmom, her mother, and their tenant, and they will all be paying us rent. But I was really confused, as this is a 3-bedroom apartment, so where would we have any kind of space for the extra tenant? He then continued, saying that me and my husband can continue living in his 1-bedroom apartment while they live in our new home for the next 4 months. Well, that got me angry, because they've decided to not live with us, but somehow made the decision about where we will be living. I had to maintain my composure, as I was with my family and I didn't want to ruin the day. Once we were home, my husband and I sat down and talked about what we were going to let my dad know if he ever were to bring the conversation up again, and have decided that they can live with us and still not kick us out, or they can live elsewhere since they actually have choices instead of choosing the easy way out. So would I be the jerk if I denied him living in our new apartment? What should I do? Okay, this is ridiculous, because if I was in the original poster's shoes, these people would not be moving into my new apartment. That's not happening. That is an insane demand that I would literally ignore right there on the spot. He can find another apartment somewhere else, and he has no right to try and kick you out of your 3-bedroom apartment that you're literally getting fixed up so that you can live there. Like, that just makes me really mad even just thinking about it. So no, you would not be the jerk for telling them to kick rocks, because these people are being very selfish, and it quite literally is only going to be at your expense. My crazy girlfriend demands that I give her $100,000 or else she will leave me and never love me again. And after having an on and off again relationship with her, as well as finally coming to my senses that this might not be good for me, I am now highly considering dumping her, as I'm starting to realize that my girlfriend might actually be scamming me. Here's what happened. So I met my girlfriend earlier this year at an Asian massage parlor, and we've been together for 8 months. She is Chinese and I'm Chinese American, and we communicate in Chinese. In the beginning, I visited her, and eventually we moved to texting on WeChat. We would talk about dreams and daily life, and I would also help her with English every single day, and I actually really loved her. About 3 months in, she started asking me to drive her around to see store locations for future businesses. So for about 1 to 2 months, I would research locations, create a list, and I would drive her to go see them. At one point, I asked her if the location we saw was great, but she thinks it's too close to another nearby massage parlor. I mentioned that it's not, since it's like 3 blocks away, which is much further than a previous location we saw, which has another parlor literally across the street. In a raised voice, she said to me, "How many times do I have to tell you not to ask this type of question? You never learn." So I got annoyed and I raised my voice and said, "Well, I need to know your thought process, since it seems to be contradictory to what you said. You need to make up your mind." Well, we did not talk on the car ride home, and from this point forward, it was basically the end of our sweet honeymoon phase. And this would be our first breakup. Each time I would have to talk to her and comfort her to be accepted again. In the next few months, we were still together, and we would take turns staying over at each other's places. And every now and then, we would go out and play badminton. One time, when I went to get the racks from my car trunk, she put her over-the-shoulder backpack on me. I took it off and I asked her to hold it for me while I get the rackets. Well, she wasn't happy, and I can see this wasn't going to end well, but I thought we already drove all the way over to the badminton courts, and we should just continue as this might cheer her up. So I just paid for the badminton session. When we started to play, she took her racket out of the bag and dropped the racket bag and remaining rackets on the ground from a standing position, and I was a bit shocked. I didn't serve, and I asked her why she did that, and then my girlfriend just left the building. Now, luckily, I was able to request a refund, and then I quickly went after her. And this incident would be our second breakup. Now, around this time, she deleted me from her WeChat, which meant that all the early romantic conversations we had were gone from her end. I still have our conversation history on my WeChat, but she was not able to recover them on her end. And this is really hard, since our memory of each other is lost now. Now, it's worth mentioning, since my English and Chinese is good, I often help out her and her relatives with any English English-related tasks on a regular basis. One time, I helped her cousin sign up for a Gmail account, and it was then that I learned her cousin was older than me. Now, I found this strange, since her cousin always referred to my girlfriend as an older sister in Chinese. The whole time, I thought my girlfriend was younger than me, but I had a suspicion that she might be older. But this wasn't an issue because I really loved her. One time when we went into my car, she mentioned that I'm just like a little brother, so I took the chance to ask about her age, and I learned that she was older than me by 3 years. We then got food and talked about this, and I later found out she has been in a previous marriage in China and has a daughter. I also learned going from China to California was not cheap, and she owes her aunt over $50,000 for the arrangement. Last month in September, we were casually talking on WeChat, and I was looking at my Apple Watch and noticed I was spending quite a bit on food, and I needed to be more aware of my spending when it comes to myself. Now, this was all in Chinese, and my Chinese is good, but it's not perfect. Well, she mistook this as me saying I've been spending too much on our dates, and later sent a message to me saying that we should break up. I didn't know what to say, and she later just ignored me. For about a week, I felt depressed, and I just couldn't function. So I drove to her house and I talked to her. I said, without you, I'm not myself, and I'm not complete. I asked her what she wanted, and she told me she wants $50,000 by the end of September so that she can pay off her debt to her aunt. And you know what? I agreed. And then she says she wants me to buy her a $50,000 car, which is way more expensive than my own car. She says that she wants this so she can leave this industry and then she can pursue her passion of being a beautician. And honestly, not being able to think, I just completely agreed with her. It should be noted, agreeing on her requests and saying it can be done means that I have to get it done. Otherwise, I don't mean what I say and then she'll just leave me again. With this though, she wanted to see results. So I gave her aunt $5,000 in cash. This was almost my full bank account, and the following weeks were very difficult for me financially. On the last day of September, I saw flowers at Costco and I thought of her, so I decided to bring them over. I've been busy throughout the week, and I didn't think too much about getting the $45,000 personal loan. I applied to a few locations, but rates were high, and they weren't from well-known banks, so I didn't think much about it. When I got to her house, she was happy to see me and asked if I took care of the loan. I said I did not have time and I was busy all week. Well, she immediately became bitter, and then she went to her room and just completely ignored me. I told her I would be able to do it, but she just said that I'm not able to keep my word. The next day, she was a bit better, and we went to scout a location to open up a beautician shop. When we got to my place, I tried to get close to her, if you know what I mean, but she said not until she gets the money. With us breaking up so often, I wasn't sure if I wanted to take the loan out. So I asked if she could text me that she would at least pay the monthly fees. But then she got upset and called an Uber home. Now, I tried to text her, but I got no reply. So, feeling really depressed, I started applying for personal loans, and I found out that Discover Bank was able to help, and I started the application process. Now, it's also important to know that her cousin and aunt often ask me for help. And fast forward to this week, and recently, her cousin asked me to search for Toyota cars for her. So, I took my girlfriend's cousin around to see cars yesterday. We didn't really see what we liked, and we returned to my girlfriend's house. Now, my girlfriend is still ignoring me, but when I tried to talk to her, she mentioned that unless I have the money, she will not talk to me. She also mentioned today was a waste of time since we checked cars and had no result. I talked to my girlfriend, promising that I'll get the money and I will start paying it off first until she has her license. And then I will buy her a car and she will start paying off the personal loans. We all then had dinner, and I found out her cousin and her aunt don't have the $25,000 cash to buy a Toyota that they want. Having come from China recently, getting a loan may be a difficult process for them. So my girlfriend proposed for me to take out a $25,000 personal loan under my name so that I could give it to her cousin to buy a car, and that this $25,000 will then be deducted from the $50,000 that she owes her aunt. And again, I just agreed with her. I went through the process with Discover Loans, and they mentioned needing 48 to 72 hours to process everything. My girlfriend was still bitter, but things were starting to look better. Now, at night, I needed her room to finish some work, and I finally wrapped up at around midnight, and when she came into the room, she asked when I'm going home. I said I was wrapping up, and then I asked her if I can take the couch in the living room, but she said that her aunt was going to sleep there since their house was full that day. But her aunt ended up sharing a bed with someone else, and instead let me take the couch. Now, this all happened yesterday night, so that night, as I was wrapping up work, I started to think, even as I try to make my girlfriend happy and do what she wants, she is still never happy. The romantic days that we shared months ago disappeared, and it has never been the same ever since. And I realize I really don't need to be treated like this. The person I really loved is no longer there. It is sad, but looking at it from a bigger picture, I'm only hurting myself and I don't need to be treated like this. I'm scared of loneliness, being rejected, and disappointing people. And I really like the feeling of somebody loving me, and that may be the reason why I kept going back. So yesterday night at 1 in the morning, I packed my backpack and I drove home. And my roommate was awake, so I just talked about my ideas until about 3 in the morning. Now, I'm writing this since it does make sense for me to leave. It makes sense to me logically, financially, and mentally. I guess I'm just longing for a memory that I'm hoping will come back, but it won't. This is my first anonymous post, and I'm writing this to remember what I've been going through and the reasons why I want to leave. What should I do? Okay, I am blown away that you're even with this lady in the first place. Okay, let me get this straight. She's treated you like garbage practically from the beginning of your relationship, and now she's literally asking for tens of thousands of dollars from you. And she's only gonna be happy unless you give her that money. Like, how could anybody in their rational mind be like, oh, but I want to feel loved and accepted. I want to feel loved by somebody. But like, my man, this lady does not like you. She likes your bank account, and she's gonna love putting you in debt, especially if it helps out her and her family. Like, these people are playing you for a fool. They are exploiting you and they are scamming you. They don't care about you in the slightest. And your girlfriend is not your girlfriend. She doesn't care about you either. I think I can confidently say that based on what you've described. Like, what girlfriend in their right mind would be like, oh, the only way you can make me happy is by giving me $50,000. Otherwise, I'm never talking to you. Like, she sounds more like a loan shark than she does like someone that cares about you. So brother, the writing is on the wall, and you can seriously do so much better than this crazy lady. She only cares about money, and more importantly, she only cares about your money. Because I guarantee you, if you fund anything in their lives, the second they get that money, they're gonna hightail it and you will never see them again. And that is not something that you ever want to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my parents out financially, all because they only help my siblings and have quite literally turned me away anytime I needed any kind of help? Here's what happened. So I'm a 30-year-old male and I'm the oldest of 5, and my siblings range from the ages of 28 all the way down to 23. Our parents were always generous with giving money when asked for it, except when it came to me. I was told I should learn to work hard. I was told I didn't need the video game or the toy that I might be asking for. I was told that earning money was the only way I'd ever have money, and I had not earned money from them. But my siblings could get whatever they wanted. When I first graduated college, I ended up struggling financially because where I went to work, the cost of apartments were so high. I asked my parents if they could help me out, and they just said no to me. I ended up in a shelter for a few weeks, and then rented a dump of an apartment with a friend who found himself in literally the same situation. They not only helped my siblings through college, which they didn't do for me by the way, but they gave each of them lump sums after they graduated to help them get started in life. They also helped them out when asked over the years, especially during the COVID years. They didn't offer any money to help towards mine and my wife's wedding. And you know what? We didn't even ask. But it stood out more when my sister got engaged and our parents had mentioned money for all the weddings. And again, it was all except for mine. Only now this is finally all caught up with them, and they are in a very tight spot with money. And now they're asking me for money too. They told me they need my wife and I's help, and we should do it because of how great they have been, and that they have never said no to any of us. But I told them they have never helped me with anything, that they preferred to see me homeless rather than help me out. They argued back that it never happened, and I could have asked if things were that bad. But I then showed them screenshots of text messages where I had brought the topic up after asking them verbally. Well, my parents dismissed it, and then told me that they're still my parents, and I'm the most settled and I could afford to help them out. But you know what? I admitted to them that I could, but I didn't feel that they earned it. Well, my parents called me spiteful and said I should help my parents rather than see them lose everything. I told them to ask the kids who they helped. And you know what? Even my siblings were pissed off that I said no. They told me mom and dad don't deserve my pettiness. So am I the jerk for turning them away and refusing to give them any money? What should I do? You are not the jerk, and you are definitely giving them a taste of their own medicine. These people literally allowed you to become homeless. They showed all this love and kindness towards your siblings, but when it came to your desperate needs, they literally turned a blind eye and said, I'm sorry, but you haven't earned it yet. Which, by the way, that was a fantastic line to deliver towards them, especially because you know they absolutely remember saying that to you. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. These people have reaped what they sowed. Karma is literally coming back to bite them in the rear end, and in my opinion, based on what you described, these people absolutely deserve it. Am I the jerk for bringing an uninvited guest to a destination wedding after the maid of honor found out that my boyfriend was staying in my hotel room? Because right now she is making a huge deal out of this, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female and I was invited to a wedding within my state, but far enough away that if I attended, I would have to sleep over at a hotel for at least 2 nights if I arrived the night before, and that's because this was pretty much planned to be an all-day affair. Now, I was very flattered to be invited, as I didn't think I was that close to the couple. It was a fairly small wedding, maybe 60 guests including the bridal party, and obviously as it was very small, and I was possibly a second-round invite, I didn't get a +1, which honestly was fine with me. So I ultimately decided to go. When I went to book the hotel room for my stay, I found that they only had large rooms available, as it is a popular wedding destination, and it is a bit fancy. So I thought to myself, why not invite my boyfriend? That way we could trade off on the long drive there and back, and we can share the big room that I would have to pay for anyways. The idea was that night we arrived, we could get dinner together somewhere new, and then have a nice breakfast before heading back home. While I was at the wedding events, he could just hang out in the hotel room or by the pool or whatever. Now the wedding went great, and then after it wrapped up, the maid of honor was chatting with me as I walked back to my room, and I knocked on the door instead of digging through my bag for the key card. When my boyfriend opened the door for me, the maid of honor just greeted him and walked off, and I didn't think it was a big deal or anything like that. A few days later, the maid of honor reached out and said it was awkward and uncomfortable for me to have invited him to the hotel, and that it made everybody feel bad and weird that he was there waiting for the wedding to end when they had not invited him. And when we were told that, we were both very surprised. No one even knew he was there because it didn't come up at all during the wedding. It definitely wasn't a big secret, and honestly, we wouldn't have thought it was a big deal if people did know. And he had only met the bride and groom like 6 times and had 0 issues with not being invited to such an intimate wedding. Also, if it matters, I was far from the only guest who didn't get a +1, and I never asked to be given a +1 for him. I have no clue if the maid of honor told the bride, and if the bride also thinks this was inappropriate. If she hasn't, I really don't want to contact her, especially during her honeymoon to start drama. I didn't check or anything beforehand, which is my bad, I guess. So honestly, am I the jerk for inviting him to be at the hotel? Was this really that big of a deal? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, and that maid of honor is an idiot. Seriously, let's think about this for a second. He didn't even go to the wedding. He literally stayed at the hotel and just waited for the wedding to be done. So for this maid of honor to idiotically be like, wow, you made this really weird for all of us. It's like, what are you talking about? He wasn't at the wedding. And this isn't even a hotel that they paid for. The original poster paid for this out of their own pocket. It would be different if the bride and groom paid for these hotel rooms, and then the original poster snuck their boyfriend in and they stayed with them during the duration. But that is not what happened. This came out of their own pocket, and they're the ones that paid for this. And if they wanted to bring their whole family with them and they all stuffed in that hotel room, then that is literally nobody's business except for the original poster. Like, the maid of honor didn't even know about this, so for her to be like, wow, you made everybody uncomfortable because of that, she's literally only talking about herself, because before this moment, she didn't even know that this guy was there. Like, seriously, what an annoying, idiotic thing to say. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for having your boyfriend at your hotel room. That maid of honor is a busybody and clearly is looking for reasons to complain, and that is definitely not your problem in the slightest. An entitled Karen demands that I get out of the way so that she and her stupid husband can move along and get past us faster than everybody else. And despite the fact that all of our cars are stuck in a deadlock and that none of us are moving any faster than the other, this Karen still goes into a rage, even going as far as knocking on my car window, demanding that I move faster or else she is gonna lose it. And I'm honestly still blown away by this entitled Karen's behavior, and I seriously hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so I had a friend in from out of town, and we decided to go to a major attraction in my city that I had not been to yet. And needless to say, with it being one of the last sunny Saturdays of summer, the parking lot was absolutely packed. We find ourselves waiting behind a line of about 5 cars, and there are a few other cars behind us in the parking lot, and it's also a one-way road. We're sitting there for about 2 minutes when suddenly the parked car next to us starts honking. Now, let me just add in really quick that if someone is clearly trying to get out of a parking spot, like inching forward, turning their lights on or anything like that, then I will always make room if I can. Now, I didn't see anything like that when we got in line, and I didn't even notice anyone was in the car at all. We look over and we see Karen and Ken in the front seat, but seem to be making arm movements as if to say, oh, I'm sorry, we hit the horn. And we look at them and they're just smiling and waving, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm not sure what's going on, so we just go ahead and ignore them. Well, suddenly, this Karen gets out of the car and storms up in a fury and starts to knock on my driver's side window really hard, and I can see that she's got the crazy eyes. I roll it down just enough to talk because I was honestly bewildered. This woman says to me, "Can you guys just move? We're trying to get out of here." Now, thinking that I might be talking to an alien who doesn't fully grasp the concept of time and space, I say something to the effect of, "We can't get through these cars any easier than you can. I'm sorry, but I can't do anything." She then goes on to say, "Be serious. You can squeeze through on the left and get past all these cars. Figure it out. You can do it. We believe in you." I said to her, "I'll do what I can," and then I rolled my window back up. Now, since I'm a people pleaser, I actually did the whole crane my neck thing for a few seconds, and I saw that the cars were clearing out in front of us, and this Karen was out of my face for no more than 10 seconds before I saw her huffing up to my car again like some kind of angry Donald Duck, and it was honestly such perfect timing. I was just able to move forward literally as her fist was raised to my window again, and the look on her face as we drove past was absolutely hilarious. I then see Karen in my rearview mirror literally scrambling back to her car, and she and Ken peel out, acting like they were fast when the car behind me was letting them in anyways. They then come to a screeching halt behind me, and the entire time they're inching off to the left, as if they're going to magically squeeze their SUV through the 2 feet of available space in the left. And for all this drama, keep in mind that this all happened within about 4 minutes. When it was all said and done, we found parking within 5 minutes of getting there, and thankfully we didn't see this entitled Karen again, and we were so glad because we definitely did not want to deal with her for a second time. Yeah, I will never understand people acting like that, especially when you're just trying to find parking. Like, for starters, it's a major attraction in the city, and it's like the last day of summer practically. So for these people to be throwing a fit like that and acting as if, "Oh my god, you gotta get out of the way, we're waiting forever," like that kind of attitude would never make me move any faster. If anything, it would probably make me slow down just a little bit more. And you know what? Anyone who bangs on my car window is absolutely not getting what they want from me. That's inappropriate, that's rude, and seriously, you're just not gonna do that. So good for you for the way that you handled this, as well as the fact that you left this lady scrambling at the last second. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't some emergency situation, but instead, at the end of the day, this was just a bunch of entitled people acting like spoiled brats. My husband betrayed me in the worst way possible by lying to his coworkers, by claiming that my pregnant sister was actually his wife. And right now, after I discover the truth, I am completely devastated, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm 30 years old, and I've been married to my husband for 5 years. We've been together for 7, and we met back in college. He was the first guy who ever made me comfortable in my own skin. I've always been more of a tomboy into sports, preferring jeans over dresses, and my body's more on the athletic side. But growing up, that wasn't always easy. But my husband loved me for who I am, and he never made me feel like I needed to change. I really thought I found the perfect partner. Now, I also have a younger sister who we will call Rose, and we've always been close. She is beautiful and effortlessly charming, the kind of person that everyone just loves. Our mom has some serious narcissistic tendencies and definitely played favorites growing up, with Rose being the golden child. But it wasn't her fault, and she never asked for the attention. In fact, she's always been super kind and supportive, even though she's the type who avoids confrontation and puts herself last to make others happy. So we've never really had an issue between us, but all those comparisons growing up left me with insecurities that I've never fully shaken. About 2 months ago, Rose's long-term partner left her after finding out that she was pregnant. She was devastated, and we agreed that she should move in with us for a while to get back on her feet. She's been staying with us ever since, and at first, everything seemed fine. My husband didn't seem to act any different, so I didn't suspect anything was wrong. But 1 month ago, I asked Rose to drop off something for my husband at work because I was completely swamped, and I didn't think much of it, and if anything, I just thought that this would save me some time. Well, she did it, and it turns out that when she got there, everyone assumed that she was his wife. They then congratulated him on his beautiful wife and their soon-to-be son, and instead of correcting them, he just went along with it. He admitted that he liked how his coworkers reacted to having a beautiful wife and a baby on the way. He said that it made him feel good. One of his coworkers asked him where his wife was at an event, and since Rose had already dropped by once before, they assumed that she was his wife, and he just didn't correct them. And this made him feel validated, like he was living up to some ideal that I guess I don't fit into. I didn't find out about any of this until a few nights ago. We were out for dinner celebrating our anniversary when we ran into one of his coworkers at the restaurant. The guy asked my husband where his wife was, was, and when my husband said something vague about her being busy, I felt like the ground had just dropped out from underneath me. The date was basically ruined, and we went home as soon as we ate. I then confronted him as soon as we got home, and that's when he finally told me everything. To say that I was devastated would be an understatement. My husband and I had always agreed on being child-free. We had that discussion early on in our relationship, and I thought that we were on the same page. I don't have a strong desire to be a mom myself, partly because of some personal issues myself, and I just know that it would be difficult for me to conceive. But now it feels like my husband's been using my sister to live out some fantasy life that I could never give him. Now, Rose had no idea about any of this, and when I told her, she was absolutely horrified. She kept apologizing even though none of this was her fault. She feels awful and has even offered to move out, but I just can't ask her to do that. She's already going through so much and I want to be there for her. But it is so awkward now. I can see how guilty and uncomfortable she feels being in the middle of this mess. This situation has also ripped open old wounds that I thought I had healed. I spent most of my 20s in therapy, working on my self-esteem and trying to overcome these insecurities, especially the ones tied to growing up in Rose's shadow. I thought I'd finally come to a place where I could love myself for who I am, but now it feels like all that progress has been undone. Years of therapy feels wasted, and I'm back to square one, questioning my worth and my place in my husband's life. Ever since finding out, things have been incredibly strained at home. My husband and I aren't sleeping in the same bed, and we've barely spoken to each other. The trust we once had feels shattered, and I have no idea how to even start repairing it. I feel so betrayed. If he can lie about something like this, what else is he hiding? Did he think I wasn't good enough to be introduced to his colleagues? And why has he never talked about his work friends before? I'm starting to wonder if he's been hiding me because he's embarrassed by who I am. This whole thing has dragged up every insecurity I've ever had. I've always felt like I didn't measure up to Rose, even though she's never done anything to make me feel that way. But now it feels like my husband has confirmed my worst fears, that he chose to pretend Rose was his wife because she fits some ideal image and I don't. I honestly don't know how to move forward from this. I love my husband and I want to believe that this is just a huge mistake, but this feels like so much more than that. I'm also worried about how this is affecting Rose. She's been nothing but supportive, but I can see how uncomfortable and guilty she feels being in the middle of all of this. I'm really struggling here. How do I even begin to address this with my husband without all of this turning into a huge fight again? I feel so low, but I just can't stand the idea of our relationship ending. I love this man more than anything. I've cried 2 times and have binge ate more than I've ever done before. How do I live my life knowing that I'm possibly not enough for my husband? What should I do? Wow, this is awful. Like legitimately, in my opinion, there is no good excuse for the way your husband acted. The second Rose went into his work and everyone started being like, wow, your wife is beautiful. Congratulations on your future child. Like that should have been shut down right then and there. He should have happily been like, no, that's not my wife. Like that is literally all he had to do to try and fix this situation. But instead, he like entertained the idea of Rose being his wife and decided to roll with it instead of fixing it right then and there. It's also really alarming to me that he hasn't shown any remorse or even apologized. Like think about it for a second. The original poster hasn't said anything about him being like, oh, I'm really sorry this happened. But instead, he's trying to plan date nights to try and like fix the situation. I just cannot understand why he would do something like that. And I really think that this is something, in my opinion, that definitely cannot be looked past moving forward. Because what he did to you is unacceptable. And this is definitely something that needs to be figured out much sooner than later. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for getting upset after coming home and finding my mother-in-law had rearranged all of my belongings without my permission first? Because right now I am very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my girlfriend and I moved into our apartment about 6 months ago, and honestly, so far so good. The only issues I have been having are boundary issues with her parents. She is a family-oriented person and takes pride in family time, which is one of the things I love most about her. However, I come from an entirely different upbringing, having very few people to turn to and relying on nobody but myself. I'm very private and I like my quiet time. My girlfriend's mother speaks without really thinking things through and doing whatever she wants no matter the place or time. A good example of that is our office space. This space is where the majority of the things I own stay in. I have a ton of Pokemon and baseball cards worth thousands of dollars. I have them in books and some just out in the open, and some are all over the place. Either way, in my weird way, I know where everything is and why it's there. Well, her parents came over with boxes and boxes of stuff that my girlfriend left over at her parents' place and decided to make their own little place in the office just for them. And I should also start by saying that I'm not home. I'm working a 12-hour-long shift at work while all of this is going on. I get home and it's close to 11 o'clock p.m. at night, and I'm exhausted. I'm looking forward to having a nice shower and some sleep. Only I came home to my girlfriend not giving me a heads up her parents for some reason were eating dinner at 10:30 p.m., that her mother was in our bedroom folding my underwear, which is entirely weird on its own, and that she had spent the day supposedly organizing all of my cards and stuff I had laying around. And in that moment, I was beyond mad, and now I can't even find the things that I had out. My girlfriend didn't see a real issue with the situation until I started to yell in frustration. I said that I don't like my things being touched, and most of all, I don't like my things being moved around when I'm not at home. We're the ones that live here. It's one thing to drop a few boxes off and leave them for us to figure out what to do with them. I didn't ask anybody to organize my entire closet and office space. So am I overreacting here? If not, I don't know how to get my point across to my girlfriend without upsetting her. She just stays quiet and doesn't speak when I'm speaking, or if I ask for her to talk, she just completely shuts down on me. I don't start by yelling, but this type of situation has happened more than a handful of times. The last thing I want to do after a 12-hour shift at work is entertaining people who have turned my house upside down. After they left our apartment, I asked, why didn't you say anything to your mother about touching things in the office? And she just said, oh, I did. And that's as far as it went. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not overreacting, and you're definitely not the jerk here. Your girlfriend is blatantly disrespecting your boundaries, and she's letting your parents literally go through all of your stuff. If that was me, I would have lost my mind. That is seriously so unfair, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Now, in my opinion, first and foremost, I would check the trash, because I legitimately think that your mother-in-law might have thrown some stuff away. Like, if you can't find it and you don't know where it is, she probably either took it or threw it away. And either one of those options is insane in my opinion. Like you said it best, this is your house. You're the one that lives here with your girlfriend. No one else has any right to be there except for you and her. So for her to just completely disrespect your boundaries like that and not try to stop her mother from doing something like this, like in my opinion, that is so inappropriate. There's literally no good excuse. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would literally stop this today. Like right this second, I would say something about it. Because this is blatantly just an invasion of privacy at this point. Because if your girlfriend is not mature enough to have some kind of conversation, then if I was in your shoes, I would be calling up the mother-in-law and say, hey, kindly never do that again. My house is not your house. Do not fold my underwear. Do not rearrange my office. Or something like that. Like seriously, I would not put up with this for a second. So truly, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, because that is seriously unfair and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my older sister that my younger sister is planning on naming her newborn child after my older sister's deceased son? Because right now there is a lot of turmoil in my family, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I have two sisters and I'm the middle sister. My older sister lost her son in late 2022, so it hasn't even been 2 years yet, and he passed away at 6 months old, and my older sister has been mourning him ever since. My little sister is pregnant with her first child now, and she found out that it's a boy. When I was over at her house, we were talking about her plans for the pregnancy and the baby, and she actually told me that she plans to name her son the name of my older sister's deceased son, and that I need to keep it a surprise. Now, I can tell that she thought it was an honor thing, but knowing my older sister, she would be devastated if that happened. I told my little sister I don't think it's a good idea, and that our older sister would not find it to be sweet and an honor, but instead it would only hurt her even more. We argued about it, and she said that I'm just being dramatic. Even though I knew it was supposed to be a surprise, I knew that my older sister would be even more depressed than she already is if our little sister named her son after her deceased son. So I went against my little sister's wishes, and I told my older sister, and as I expected, she was pissed. She said it was incredibly disgusting and selfish to do that, knowing how fresh it is for her, and that she does not want to see a baby with her son's name in the family, which I agreed with. She was very grateful that I told her before he was born, because she said she doesn't know how badly that would have triggered her. Well, she of course confronted my little sister, and they argued about it for a while, with everyone in our family siding with my older sister. My little sister then called me in tears, saying that I'm the reason that my older sister cut her off and isn't speaking to her, because she is still going to name her son after our nephew, even with my my older sister begging her not to, saying that she doesn't find it as some kind of honor and that it would hurt her to see another child named after her deceased one. I told my little sister that she's a horrible person for still going through with this, knowing how much this is going to hurt our sister. She then says that I'm a jerk for telling her since it was supposed to be a surprise at birth, and that according to her, seeing her nephew with her son's name would have made her realize that it's a good thing, and that she's just trying to be a good person, and that I'm a jerk for making them fight. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. You did the right thing by talking to your older sister and telling her exactly what this moron was about to do. Your younger sister is a complete idiot. Like seriously, she is so stupid it's not even funny. Who in their right mind would think that this is okay? Like it's probably super obvious in the family that the older sister is mourning the loss of her son, and she is clearly having such a hard time right now. So for your little sister to act like this and use your older sister's dead son's name as some kind of excuse to like pay tribute or like honor him in some kind of way is not only delusional but also kind of insane. Like seriously, that is a crazy thing to do. So truly, good for you for stepping up and saying something, because this kind of behavior absolutely deserved to be shamed. My sister-in-law is furious with me after I make her lunch every single day with just a little bit too much flourish, because now she claims she's embarrassed to eat her food in front of any of her coworkers, and she's now demanding that I stop or else she will never talk to me ever again. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I make meals every day for me and my husband to take to work. I enjoy adding my own personal flourish to the meals, usually with something like putting toppings in the shape of a heart or drawing a cute face on a snack. It's a fun hobby of mine, and it brings me joy later in the day to open my lunch and see it nicely arranged. A few years ago, my sister-in-law had to take a lower-paying job after an accident that left her unable to work at her previous one. So I began making her meals like I did for my husband and myself, as I knew she was struggling both financially and emotionally. She lives very close to us, so my husband always just dropped them off on his commute to work. I always added my extra touch to her meals as well, since I enjoy cooking, and I figured it would be a nice thing to do. However, she called me a few months ago and asked me if I could stop making her lunches look so fancy. Now, I legitimately thought that she was joking, but according to her, none of her colleagues at work have such elaborate lunches, and it makes her feel as if she is flaunting her status. Now, she is not paying me for the lunches, and it takes me maybe an extra 10 minutes maximum to add some kind of fun touch to the meal, so I was confused on her train of thought. I thought that maybe her coworkers were taking her lunch, and she just didn't want to tell me, but I agreed to make the lunches less fancy because I wanted her to feel comfortable. Well, since I make the exact same meals for all three of us, now I just don't put effort into the presentation of one of them. Since my husband drops off the lunch on his way to work, there has been 1 or 2 times where he has accidentally given her the wrong box. I have labeled which lunch is not flourished, but in the rush of the commute, there is still the occasional instance of taking the wrong box. My sister-in-law then asked me a few days ago if I could just stop making both me and my husband's lunches fancy due to the risk of her being given the wrong one, but I refused, as it makes me happy to see the extra touch of personality in the food, and I told her that it wouldn't hurt her if she got one accidental fancy meal. But when I said that, she was furious and then she hung up on me. She has now been refusing to talk to me over the past few days, and when I tried to call her to reason, she just kept hanging up on me. She has told my husband that she will only talk to me if I agree to stop making all of our lunches look so fancy. Well, I am still making her lunches every day, and my husband is still dropping them off. And while my husband agrees with me that her demand was out of order, he has now said that maybe I should just make all the food less flourished, just so that she will not be angry if there is an accidental swap of lunches. I know that it would be easy on me to just not flourish the food, but I don't want to give up my hobby for a theoretical chance of her receiving the wrong box. So am I the jerk for refusing to do this? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk. This sounds like a really cute thing to do, and if I had a significant other who was doing that, I would treasure that and be like, okay, let's keep doing that. Also, is your sister-in-law forgetting the fact that you're making lunches for her every single day? Like, you don't need to do that, but you're doing it out of the kindness of your own heart to help her out since she's having a hard time financially. And she really wants to sit there and be picky about what she's getting. She's like, oh my god, this is too fancy. Can you tone it down? In fact, you need to stop doing that for all of your lunches. I don't want to accidentally be embarrassed at work. Like, what are you talking about? This is literally someone biting the hand that's feeding them. So in my opinion, if your sister-in-law doesn't like that, then she can make her own stupid lunches. I mean, I'm kind of surprised you're even making them still in the first place, because this behavior is insane. She can't just make these kinds of weird demands and expect you to just follow through with them, because the only words coming out of her mouth should be a thank you, and that's that's it. And if she doesn't like the way her food looks, then honestly, she can close her eyes and take a bite, because these kinds of weird demands, in my opinion, are completely unacceptable. My boyfriend falsely staged an intervention for me, despite the fact that I'm not addicted to any substances. And now my family, friends, and work colleagues are all slowly turning against me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years, and our relationship has had absolutely no issues before this incident. He has been the perfect and most loving partner. However, last week, I came home from work to an intervention with all my close friends and family, orchestrated by my boyfriend, who has apparently convinced them that I'm an addict. For context, I have no history of substance abuse, no behavioral signs that would suggest any kind of addiction, and no reason for him to believe otherwise. I believe he knows I'm not on any kind of substance because he has said things to my mom and sister that he knows to be untrue, claiming that things have gone missing around the house even though they haven't, that I've used his credit card to withdraw money even though I don't have any of his card details, and that I've been acting erratically despite the fact that I haven't done anything out of the ordinary. When I confronted him about all of this, he said, "It's not about the substances, it's about making sure that you're safe." My partner is a psychologist and has convinced my entire family that I'm somehow displaying all the hallmark signs of having some kind of substance addiction. They all insist that I'm in denial and that I need some help, and no one is willing to entertain my denials at all. My mom says that she isn't willing to have me over to her house, and my sister won't allow me to see my niece until I go to rehab. Based on conversations with my family and friends, I believe he's been spinning this story for several months now, literally all prior to staging the intervention. I'm now super embarrassed, as he organized for practically all of my close friends, family, and even a work colleague to attend this intervention. But more than that, I feel utterly betrayed and confused. I can't understand his motivation for doing this. Can anyone offer me some insight into what is prompting this otherwise normal man to do this? What should I do? This is probably the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life, and if I was in your shoes, I would be dumping him right away and getting out of that situation. For starters, who cares about his motivation? This guy's trying to isolate you and ruin your life. He's turning your friends, family, and your work colleagues against you by making up some lie that you're somehow addicted to substances. And since you're not, you're probably thinking like, what is going on right now? I am not addicted to anything. And at this point, in my opinion, I would just start viewing your boyfriend as not your boyfriend. But instead, this is someone you absolutely need to run from, because this is not normal behavior. And this is also not a normal man. He's not otherwise normal. This guy's insane. He is literally using his profession as a psychologist to isolate you from everybody that you know. And he's trying to force you into rehab for something that you don't have a problem with. Like, this guy is manipulating everybody around you to try and turn them against you. So if I was in your shoes, I would get out of there like yesterday. There's no way I would stay in that relationship. I would write everything down and probably look for like local or state help to try and get you out of that situation, because your boyfriend sounds quite literally unhinged, and this is not something that I would take lightly in the slightest. My entitled old neighbor is constantly stealing my mail and taking my packages, claiming that he's just trying to help me out anytime he sees it on my front porch, while also refusing to admit that he stole anything from me. But after finally catching him on camera in the act, after I told him to stay away from me, I finally have solid evidence proving that he's been stealing my packages, forcing me to call the police. Here's what happened. So I'm a single female living in an apartment complex, and it's just me and my dog. My neighbor across the hall is a creepy old grumpy man that I've never liked since the day he moved in. He keeps junk outside of his door, doesn't control the people that come over to his house, he throws food and trash into the common areas, and once even tried swinging at my dog with his cane. He's always made me feel extremely uncomfortable around him since day one. I have complained and complained to management, but they do nothing about him. He plays dumb when confronted and then goes back to doing whatever it was. About a year ago, he started taking my packages. I would come home to no package and have to wait for him to appear to get my stuff. Constantly, I told him to leave my packages alone, and he always says that he's just trying to help me out. Now, it's important to note that I have never had a package stolen in this building ever. I have had them delivered to the wrong address, but never stolen, and this went back and forth for a full year. He would even take them when I was home, and I literally opened my door one day to collect my package, only to then see him nearly bolting out of his apartment to get it. When he saw me, he would just say, "Oh, you're home," and then go back inside. Eventually, I had enough and I decided to buy a camera, and the camera seemed to keep him away as he doesn't like it. Last week, I was expecting a book to be delivered. The mailman drops it off, waves to the camera, and then leaves. But then this guy opens his door, he stares at my package package for several minutes before trying to take it into his apartment. I then got on the intercom and I yelled at him to put my stuff down, which thankfully he decides to drop it. Well, no more than 10 minutes later, he comes back out and takes the package again. But at this point, I decided that I had definitely had enough, because that's when I decided to get off work early, come home straight away, and call the police. The officer who came out watched the video I recorded and went over to talk to my neighbor. And it was the same excuse as always, him claiming that he was just trying to be helpful. But here's the thing, I never asked him to start taking my packages. The officer then gave him a warning, saying that if he took anything else from my door, I could press charges against him and he would be arrested. Well, this guy was super pissed off. My camera also records audio, and I could hear him complaining to his niece that I didn't need to call the cops, and again that he was just looking out for me. And you know what? I would feel safer with a tiger following me in the woods than dealing with this guy as one of my neighbors. Yeah, this guy was clearly stealing your mail, and there's just no good excuse for that. Him being like, oh, I'm just trying to help out, I'm just trying to look out for you. It's like, no buddy, you're over here trying to steal her mail, which by the way, that's a federal crime. You can't just do that. That like seriously is so messed up. Like if you're not aware, or if you're not from the United States of America, if you steal somebody's mail and take it from them without their permission, that is a serious crime. Like that is really not okay. So I'm kind of surprised that the original poster hasn't taken this a lot further. There is literal video evidence of this guy stealing your mail all the time, as well as him literally admitting it over recording that he's doing that on purpose, that he has an agenda despite the fact that he's like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to help out. Like that's insane in my opinion, and there's literally no good excuse for that. Because seriously, the barrier of entry for this is so low. All he has to do is not take your packages and then bam, he's right there and it's no problem. But this guy literally is targeting you and going out of his way to take your stuff. And in my opinion, that kind of behavior absolutely should be punished. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen makes my life a living nightmare after I was forced to sit in the middle seat on an airplane after being placed on standby. And I'm honestly so appalled by this lady's behavior, and I seriously cannot believe the way that she acted. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I don't really know the ages of the couple in the story, but they seem to be in their late 20s or early 30s. Now, this flight was a 5-hour flight, and I always pay extra and pick my seat in advance. However, due to a medical emergency on a flight from earlier in the day, I was placed on standby because the people who got displaced from that flight were also placed on our flight since it was the next one headed to the same location. Fortunately, towards the end of boarding, my name ended up being called. I got lucky and was able to get on this flight because I think they switched to a bigger plane and didn't have to instead wait for the next flight. Now, on this new flight, my seat ended up being the middle seat in a row of 3. When I got to my row, the man and woman were chatting and sharing a snack, and it was obvious that they were together. I mentioned to the man who was in the aisle that I'm in the middle seat, and he got up to let me in. I asked them if they would prefer to sit together, and I said that I'm totally okay doing that, and that they can pick the seats. Well, the woman almost immediately reacted rudely to this. She said something like, well, you're not supposed to be sitting here anyways. I explained the situation, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure everyone on the plane was aware of this, as there was an announcement and some rearranging had happened. I then offered to show her my new ticket, as it did show my seat number on it. She flicked her hand at my ticket and made a disgusting sound. So I offered again. If they want to sit together, I'm more than willing to move, to which she just didn't even reply. Her partner said it's okay and seemed kinder between the two of them. So I sat down, and he just made some small talk about how the plane must be so full. Well, this woman didn't wait long and eventually interrupted us. She asked me, did you use one of those third-party websites to book your flight? It is so frustrating when people cheap out to inconvenience others. But I told her that I booked directly, and the only reason I got placed on standby along with many other people was due to the medical emergency that happened on another flight. I mean, none of us got to choose our seats. She then asked me if I paid for seat selection, which I told her I definitely did. And by this point, I was so done with her attitude. So I just put my headphones on and attempted to do my own thing. Well, this woman, for the remaining 4 hours, kept reaching over me and tapping her partner and trying to talk to him in a way that was super intrusive to me, being stuck between them. I could tell even her partner was trying to engage less, also that she would hopefully stop, but she didn't. And the entire time, she acted like I was the problem in this scenario. Well, the unforeseen part of this aside, I think they tried to pull that tactic where they don't get to sit together on purpose, leaving the middle seat empty, hoping that no one will sit between them. But on full flights, which most flights are full nowadays, it simply simply doesn't work. And even so, it is definitely not the other person's fault. Wow, this entitled Karen really is the definition of stupid and entitled. If she really wanted to sit with her partner, literally all she had to do was move over. And if she didn't want to move, then easily just move the partner to the middle seat and let the original poster sit in the aisle. Then you don't have to reach over and be a nuisance and try to blame the person in the middle seat for even getting the middle seat. Like, how awfully entitled and stupid do you have to be to not only make somebody's life a living nightmare for picking the middle seat, which by the way, it's already a nightmare, but then to try and blame it on them for being cheap or somehow like working the system. Like, what in the world is wrong with this lady? This isn't your fault and you didn't ask to sit between them. And you even offered a solution where it's like, okay, you two can sit together and I'll just be over here. But this Karen's like, no, I don't even want that. She even goes as far as like slapping the ticket in your hand. Like, seriously, what a brat. If she didn't want to have some problems with you sitting there, then maybe next time choose to sit together or at least agree to switch seats from the beginning, because this attitude for 4 hours was completely unnecessary and you did not deserve that in the slightest. iPad kids literally terrify me at my restaurant that I work at, as they are quite literally some of the worst people I have to deal with on a daily basis. And I'm honestly so sick of it and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I work as a server and it's not a high-end place, but it is decent, meaning that we don't have a lot of kids on average due to us having an incredibly limited menu and no kids menu in the first place. So when kids do come into our restaurant, the front of house dies just a little bit inside. When I tell you these kids nowadays are monsters and that these parents are delusional and that it's depressing, I honestly mean it. For example, I had a table the other day of 2 adults and 3 kids, and I've seriously never seen so much chaos take over a restaurant. iPads were being thrown around, plates being purposefully dropped on the ground. The amount of screaming and running around causing damage was just too much to handle. Not to mention, one of the other servers had a little girl at their table that when her iPad got taken away, she started lighting the cutlery on fire from the candle on the table and decided to burn her mom with it as well. I've even had kids scream at me because our restaurant doesn't have Wi-Fi. We're talking like 9 to 13-year-olds. Like, this new generation is absolutely cooked. So without a doubt, please leave your annoying, unmannered, ignorant iPad kid at home and don't bring your untrained child into a restaurant that literally isn't McDonald's. Also, yes, when your child is screaming and running around the restaurant or so glued to their iPad screen that when you think your kid is grown up and can order themselves, but still can't form a sentence at 12 years old. And yes, the whole staff is judging you and laughing at you and making fun of you and absolutely talking garbage about you. Because trust me, some therapist in the future is going to make a lot of money off of all the damage that you're currently causing. Yeah, I completely agree with the original poster on this one. iPad kids are literally the worst, and they seriously are like a breed of their own. Now, I'm not implying that adults are not addicted to their phones and they're not on it all the time. Like, that happens all the time, and I completely think that's still a problem. But when you hand that to a child who is not fully developed and give them a device that literally is endless entertainment, all without any kind of like regulation or any kind of monitoring, like, that is literally just a recipe for disaster for everybody around you. So truly, I feel for the original poster because I feel the exact same way. And parents who do that, in my opinion, are failing their kids and they're only causing problems in the future. Am I the jerk for not giving my one sister who eloped as generous of a gift as my sister who had a traditional wedding? Because right now, my sister who eloped is very upset with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents had me when they were really young. They are still together now and had 2 more kids, my sister Katie and Jess later on. Katie and Jess are not their real names. Now, I'm about 17 years older than the both of them respectively, so because of the age gap, we didn't really grow up together, and sometimes I feel more like an uncle than an older brother to them. I've been fortunate in my career to do relatively well, and I've typically been pretty generous with them when it comes to things like birthdays, Christmases, and graduations. My sister Katie got married 2 summers ago and had your typical traditional wedding. I would guess maybe about 125 people were there, and it honestly was very nice, but definitely not cheap. I don't know how much they spent, but I know my parents and her husbands were only able to contribute for about half the cost. The rest was my sister and her husband paying for it. They were super cool and let me and my wife bring our 2 kids, even though I later found out the venue charged the same amount for kids as adults for the food and everything else. It meant a lot, and I didn't want their inclusion to be a burden, so my wife and I gifted them $500 as a wedding present to cover our plates plus a little bit extra. Now, my sister Jess has always been more low-key. When she got engaged, she told us all that she would likely elope, and nobody tried to convince her otherwise because it made sense for them. They are not flashy and have always seemed pretty frugal, and they are definitely not the type to throw a big wedding, cost costing tens of thousands of dollars. Well, they announced a couple of weeks ago that they eloped in the mountains with just them and the necessary witness. And I was happy for them, and I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. I've been to enough weddings that I don't have any kind of fear of missing out. I'm just happy they had what they felt was right for them. Now, since they didn't have a wedding, I didn't think to get them a wedding present because, they didn't have a wedding. But they did just go under contract on their first home together, so my wife and I got them a $100 gift card to Home Depot. I remember when I first bought my first home, there were a lot of home improvement stuff, and I made like 100 trips there, so I thought it would be a nice gift. Well, apparently she asked Katie what she got for their wedding, and she told them, and now she felt a certain way about our gift to them. She made a comment about feeling like their marriage wasn't respected enough because they didn't throw a big party, and then said that it felt like I was showing favoritism. So I told her that I have Katie more because she hosted my whole family, and I know how expensive that is, having paid for my own wedding. Jess then just kind of rolled her eyes and walked away after that interaction, and we haven't talked about it ever since. And that was this past Sunday. Now, I thought it would be understood that the situations were just different, and it is unreasonable to expect the same generosity when you don't give any generosity, such as hosting an event or even feeding people. They didn't have a traditional wedding, and they didn't invite us to celebrate with them. So am I the jerk for not being as generous with my gift to my sister, all because they didn't have a traditional wedding? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think it's really weird that Jess is trying to compare the two weddings. Like, that is super inappropriate because literally she chose to get eloped, not you. Nobody else forced that upon her. She didn't want to have any kind of celebration. She didn't want anybody else there except the necessary witness, and she didn't tell anybody in advance, so like, how can anyone be expected to get anything for them? Not to mention that Katie and her husband spent all this money on this dinner and had all these things set up, including your kids, which was an extra cost. So it does kind of make sense that you would spend just a little bit more money on her and only about a fifth of that on your other sister who didn't even have a wedding. Like, I don't know. I just don't think the two situations can be compared. And for Jess to be like, wow, you gave her $500, but I only got $100. Like, that is super selfish, and in my opinion, it is incredibly inappropriate for her to compare the two of their weddings. Am I the jerk for the way I handled my father-in-law after he tried to take full control over the house that we were trying to renovate? Here's what happened. So my father-in-law is a generous man, but has what he refers to as an a-hole gene, meaning that he doesn't stop to consider what anyone else wants in many situations. Since my husband and I have been living with my husband's brother, my father-in-law decided that when the neighbor's house went on the market for a steal, he would buy us the house. After consulting with his financial planner, the decision was made to have both my father-in-law and my husband on the title and deed to the house. We would pay all taxes and utilities, and when my father-in-law passes away, my husband would inherit the house. Well, here's where it gets very messy. The house needs a lot of work. Originally, my husband and I were going to be responsible for improvements and repairs. So I started meeting with contractors and getting estimates for the work. My husband doesn't know much about home repair or renovation, and I do, as my family has renovated multiple homes. So he's been letting me handle all of the work with the contractors. But even so, my father-in-law will not speak directly to me about anything related to the house, meaning that my poor husband has to play messenger, telling me what his dad wants to do, then telling his dad that I've already got it handled and I want to do something different. The final straw came today when my husband relayed to me that his dad has said that any permanent changes to the house that cost more than $5,000 has to be approved by him. Even if we're paying for them, he wants to sign off on any and all decisions, including tile colors, light fixtures, etc. So I forwarded all my communication with the contractor that we'd chosen, but haven't signed anything with yet, and said that if he wants to make the decisions, then he can make all of the decisions. He will own the house, and we will sign a rental lease when the work is done. He'll have to pass city inspections for rental units and abide by all state and local rental law. Well, now he's mad, saying that I'm ungrateful, selfish, and controlling. And at this point, I don't even want the house anymore. I'm ready to take the cat and go stay with my brother, but I don't actually want to leave my husband. I'm just sick of catering to his dad's whims. One day later, I have finally read through all of your comments, and I didn't really reply to most of them. I realize how incredibly privileged we are to be in this position, and I never had any intention of doing any work on the house without my father-in-law's approval, but we've already discussed what we're going to do, and he agreed that I should go ahead and find a contractor. But then he changed the rules. So I had dinner with my mother-in-law last night to commiserate about what a butthead he can be. And for reference, my mother-in-law definitely divorced my father-in-law. And it's then that she gave me some good advice on dealing with him. The bottom line is that we are not putting a single cent into a home home unless we both have a legal stake in it. And if that can't happen, then trust me, nothing's gonna get done. So am I the jerk for the way that I handled this? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it sounds like your father-in-law is super controlling. Like, this guy literally didn't buy this house for you at all. He only bought it for himself and his son. Like, literally, you are not involved in this equation at all. And that is crazy to me. Like, that really is so inappropriate. Like, this probably was just a ploy for him to control you and your husband for the rest of his life. Because sure, let's say you do fix up the house, and maybe you do move into it and have some kind of agreement. He could then overnight start making these weird rules about what you can and can't do, and try to enforce his will over you and your husband. Like, that is crazy to me, and there's really no good excuse for that. And I think there definitely needs to be a conversation with your husband for not standing up for you in the first place. Like, why was he just so willing to go along with this without being like, wait a second, why does my wife not have any cut in this? Because out of everybody, it seems like you knew exactly what you were doing. So for you to not even be considered in the title of this house, in my opinion, is incredibly insulting. Am I the jerk for asking my parents to stop telling people that I'm in the hospital, as I feel like they're violating my privacy in a way that I do not appreciate? Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I'm currently pregnant and have been admitted to the hospital a few days ago for a suspected clot in my lung following severe chest pain, and I am still in the hospital right now. A few weeks ago, my wonderful maternal grandfather passed away from cancer, and we are obviously, as a family, still very upset. 2.5 years ago, I was in a car accident. I broke my back in 3 places. I broke my pelvis and 3 ribs. It was also during COVID, so I was admitted to the hospital and had loads of scans all throughout the day and night. Once they figured that I didn't need corrective surgery, they discharged me the following morning with morphine tablets and a wheelchair. I then came out of the hospital to around 100 messages from people that I barely knew wishing me well. My mom and stepdad had posted pictures of my wrecked car on Facebook and told everyone they knew about the accident and the specifics about my injuries. Now, at the time, I asked them to take down the posts as I did not want people knowing all about my personal life, but they never did so. Today, my friend told me that my mom has been sending messages into group chats telling people that I am pregnant and in the hospital. My stepdad also did the same thing for his family, and I have told them that my husband and I want to share the news ourselves. I told them that I was so hurt and disappointed that they have told people and also lied to me about it. I even pointed out the lie and told them that I had again received messages from others proving that they had lied to me. My mom then sent me a voice note of her crying, saying that she was sorry and that she didn't know what she was doing, that she must be the worst mother in the world, and that she's just so upset about Papa too. It was hard to hear that she was so upset, but I just reiterated that asking for privacy was not too much to ask. My stepdad, who I have been very close to, also sent me a voice note telling me that they don't need this kind of stress and to stop being so hateful over something so trivial. He told me that I was clearly hormonal, but that he will let it slide this time because I'm pregnant. He told me that my mom has cried for over 30 minutes and it's all my fault and that it's all over nothing. Also, that they told other people because they are worried about me. He said they will never apologize as they haven't done anything wrong. He also said that I'm the daughter that he never had and that he loves me, but he is so disappointed in my behavior. And here's the original message that started this sent to my mom. I said to her, "Sorry, it's just I've had messages from people today wishing me well in the hospital, so I know you've lied about who you have told about me being here. I am just so hurt and disappointed as I would have much preferred privacy. I don't feel like sharing anymore because I don't know who you're both sharing it with, and it has actually made me being in the hospital much more stressful. Now, I might be the jerk because we are all grieving and emotions are running high, but I also don't feel like they told other people in a malicious way, but instead just did it in a thoughtless way. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do?" I don't think you're the jerk at all for drawing boundaries out, especially with the way your stepdad was acting. Is he really trying to be like, "Oh, you're just hormonal right now because you're pregnant, but that's okay, I'll let it slide this time"? Like, seriously, what kind of passive-aggressive sexist comment is that? What a coward to say something like that when you're literally in the hospital. Oh, he's gonna let it slide? What would he do if he didn't let it slide? Like, what a ridiculous thing to say to somebody who is literally currently in the hospital. And in my opinion, I'm right there with the original poster. I wouldn't want my personal information out there, especially if I wasn't the one to first tell people about it. Like, I think what you're asking is completely reasonable in my opinion, and for your mom and stepdad to disrespect you in this way, in my opinion, is very toxic and incredibly thoughtless. An entitled Karen goes into a fit of rage after I hang up on her for being aggressive and toxic towards me over the phone. But as a result, this entitled Karen came to my store directly so that she could confront confront me and try to get me fired. And I've honestly never met anybody more insane in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work in the cosmetics department for a very popular brand. We were always busy and some days were non-stop. So this particular day was during the holidays, and I remember being behind the register with a crazy long line, along with other clients waiting to be helped, as well as other appointments waiting to arrive. This entitled Karen calls on the phone and is asking about a product from a different counter. Well, I tell her that I don't work for that brand, but I can transfer her over. She then goes, "No, I don't want to be transferred. You can walk over there yourself and tell me if they have this product." I then tell her that every department is separate and that the person there will assist her with this. She just completely disregards everything I said and repeats that I need to personally go over there and check myself. I also tell her that it's completely slammed at my counter and I couldn't even leave if I wanted to because I have clients waiting in front of me. I'm still at this point being patient and professional, even though this Karen was really pushing it. She then starts getting stern, like she's talking to a child or her own personal employee, and tells me something along the lines of, "I am telling you right now to go over there yourself and tell me what it is, because that's what good customer service is." Well, at this point, I'm getting really pissed off, because in the time I've wasted talking to her, she could have been transferred and already knew if they had what she wanted. And also, she's definitely not going to talk down to me as if I'm beneath her. It's clear she wanted to be demanding and unreasonable, and when I see that's the intention, I'm not going to play their power games. I tell her, "Okay, ma'am, I'm transferring you now." She then starts demanding to know my name, but I tell her I'm not going to give it to her. So I transfer her, I hang up the phone, and I try to assist as many clients at the same time as I can, because there are even more people waiting now. About 20 minutes later, I'm behind the register with a never-ending line of people, and right then and there, I see this one annoyed-looking lady who resembles the leprechaun from those horror movies come stalking over to my department, and I can definitely tell that she's looking for trouble. Don't ask me how I knew, but I had a gut feeling it was the entitled Karen from the phone earlier, and boy was I definitely right. She eventually comes up to the counter, but not to where she is with the people waiting for help. She comes to the side of the counter like you would if you wanted to ask a quick question. I kid you not, she turns her head to listen to each of the workers behind the counter as we are speaking to customers, just so she can figure out who it was that she spoke to on the phone by our voices. And at this point, I knew for a fact it was her, and I was in disbelief and honestly amused that this lady, who was too important to wait for a call to be transferred to the correct department, somehow had enough time to physically come to the counter to confront me. I'm watching her from the corner of my eye, but I don't acknowledge her. By now, my coworkers have noticed this woman and her weird behavior, and I tell them that I'm pretty sure it's the crazy Karen who called earlier. Now, at this point, Leprechaun Lady isn't saying anything, just eyeballing us and leaning in to hear us talk. Eventually, she points to me and goes, "It was you." But I look at her with such disinterest and I just say, "Excuse me?" She then says that I'm the one who wouldn't help her on the phone earlier, and she wants my name, the number to corporate, and to speak to a manager. Mind you, we are still slammed with customers, and everyone is looking at her making a scene. Well, I just kept my cool, because that was making her even more angry that I was being so nonchalant. So I tell her now that she's here, she can go check the counter herself for her product. I also let her know that I'm still not giving her my name because her behavior makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable, and that if she doesn't get away from me, I'm calling security. And by now, she has pretty much everyone in the vicinity looking at her crazy, and I guess she decided not to push her luck because she finally left in a huff. This Karen clearly had too much time on her hands and wanted to use it to go cause problems, and I can only imagine the issues that she causes everywhere else that she goes. Wow, you either have to be like super bored or incredibly petty to show up to a store after talking to someone like that on the phone. Like seriously, if she had just been transferred, she could have figured this out right away. But instead she's like, "No, I want you to do it. You need to be my personal slave right away." Like that is so crazy to me, and I will never understand that. It's also incredibly creepy that she was trying to listen to everybody talk just to figure out who it was that hung up on her. Like seriously, this is that important to this lady. She had to go out of her way to figure out who it was just to try and like teach him a lesson. Like, what are you doing with your life? Seriously, that is so insane to me. So good for the original poster for not giving out their name or even giving this lady the time of day, because people like this truly are obnoxious to deal with, and I love the fact that this Karen got shut down almost immediately. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that she isn't invited to my brother's wedding, all because she was extremely rude to his fiance? Because right now she is is in complete denial, and at this point, I don't know if I made a mistake or not, and I really now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother, who we will call Connor, and his fiance, who we will call Christine, are getting married in early 2025. They got engaged a few months ago and have recently sent out wedding invitations, and my mom is upset because she wasn't invited. For some background info, we met Christine after she and Connor had been dating for about 8 months, and that was a few years ago. Basically, my mom just didn't like her. After we met her, she'd constantly complain and criticize Christine, and this would range from her looks all the way to her job. And for reference, Christine is a waitress, and my mom would say stuff like, "Oh, she just isn't good enough for my son." And honestly, I don't get any of it. Christine and I are friends. She is such a sweet person who wouldn't hurt a fly. Whenever Christine and Connor came over for dinner or an event, she wouldn't say anything to Christine, but she tried to get Connor to always spend time with her instead of Christine. She always tried to one-up Christine as well. If she called Connor and he mentioned that Christine made dinner, her dinner was suddenly just always better. If Christine had a gift for Connor, my mother always tried to say how her gift was better than hers. Thankfully, my brother is not stupid and realized all of this. And to avoid starting family drama, he didn't condemn her loudly in front of everybody, but would always defend Christine if he heard her talking any kind of garbage. He made it very clear that if she kept talking badly about Christine all the time, he would go extremely low contact. And that made her stop for a while, but since they announced their engagement, she is back to it again. Maybe she forgot, I don't really know. But I do think it's because Connor is her son, and I know that some mothers can be very clingy with their sons. I have a boyfriend, and I've never heard her say a bad word about him. So I do really think it's because Connor is her son and I am her daughter. I was at my mom's house yesterday, and my mom complained that she wasn't invited. She said Christine was stealing Connor away from her. So I told her that Connor getting married didn't necessarily mean Christine was stealing him. Then I asked her what exactly she didn't like about Christine, but it all really led back to the same thing. She would say that she's stealing her son away from her. I told her that while she can't control how she feels, she can control her actions, and that talking about Christine like that was the reason that she wasn't invited. I tried to say it gently, but she did not take it well at all. She tried to make excuses and say that it was fine, and that it's just her venting to her family and friends, and that I was being inconsiderate of her feelings. Now, I know how she feels about it, but I think those feelings aren't really an excuse for talking garbage behind someone's back like that. Not to mention going out of your way to make it clear that you dislike them. And I know I'm not the only person in the family who would argue with me. I ended up telling Connor about it, and he said I was right, and that she needed a reality check. But it's all been weighing on my mind. I just can't stop thinking about it. So am I the jerk for telling the truth to my mom? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk, because I think you gave her the nice version of how this really was gonna go down, and I think the fact that she just doesn't understand what she did wrong, in my opinion, is a massive red flag. Like, it really seems like she's in complete denial, and she cannot accept the fact that yes, she definitely is the problem. I mean, just look at the way she's treating Christine. She's literally acting like, oh yeah, you're not good enough for my son. That is such a toxic way of acting, not to mention the fact that the mom's like, oh, you're stealing my son away from me. That is such a weird thing to say because you are not married to your son. Your son is getting married to Christine. Like, that is such a strange thing to insinuate. And if she was doing this right, it wouldn't be like, oh yeah, you're stealing him away from me. But instead, you should be saying, oh, I'm so happy for you. You found someone that you actually care about and you can now move forward with your life. Like, does the mom in this story really want her son to stay single forever? Like, that just doesn't make any sense, and honestly, it kind of gives good reason as to why she wasn't invited to the wedding in the first place. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for dropping this news, because I'm sure that Connor or Christine would have said it a lot harsher, and I think if anything, she got the nice version instead of getting scolded and humiliated. An entitled Karen tries to sneak her friend into the gym that I work at, all without showing any kind of proper membership. Here's what happened. So this happened this morning when I picked up a shift at another location at the gym that I work at. Keep in mind, this is the first time I worked at this location, and I did just start with the company 3 weeks ago. I opened the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, and at around 7 o'clock in the morning, this man and woman came in to work out, and this woman, let's call her Jackie, that's not her real name, scanned her QR code, but her friend did not. We offer buddy passes at a cost, and my screen told me that she did not have any buddy passes, and I did not see her friend scan a QR code. I had asked Jackie if her friend was a member and had a QR code, and she has said that it's okay because he's my buddy, but unfortunately, I sadly had to inform her that she didn't have any buddy passes, and I asked her friend if he ever had our guest pass, which was a one-time free thing for locals. Well, he said that he did before, so that automatically disqualified him for a free guest pass. I bring up that the buddy passes are $20, and she can bring in one person every time that she comes in, and so I asked ask if she wants to do that, but she just declines the offer. I informed Jackie that since she doesn't have any buddy passes on her account, and because her friend in the past has already used a free guest pass, and that she doesn't want to buy a buddy pass, then unfortunately I would have to refuse his entry. Now, I'm the type of person that has a hard time with confrontation, and I'm a very anxious person, but I am working on my confidence with confrontation and potential issues that may arise. She said that he is always allowed in and that everybody just lets him by. I then try to think on my toes to come up with a resolution, and I tell her to hold on and let me speak to someone whom at the time I thought he was in my position but one step above the ladder, but later found out that I was wrong. So I asked him if people let him in all the time, and he just said it's not his jurisdiction and that we do offer 3-day guest pass for about $25. And I thought to myself, oh, I forgot about that. I replied by saying, okay, I'll go ahead and offer it to her then. I went ahead and I offered it to her, and she said that her friend won't be over here much longer, which implies that he was from out of state. She decided to be a jerk and say, oh, you must be new here. And I was flabbergasted that she even decided to make that comment. I did tell her, yes, I was new here and it was my 3rd week, but at the same time, unfortunately, since you don't have a buddy and he doesn't want to pay for a guest pass, unfortunately, he is not able to work out today. And I then apologized for the inconvenience. She was going to say more, but her friend stopped her and said that it's okay, that he can go for a walk and that he'll be back later when she's done. And thankfully, right then and there, the whole debacle ended. And I will say, at the end of the day, I thankfully missed her exit out of the gym. I then asked the manager at that location when he showed up at about 9 o'clock, and he didn't even know who Jackie was off the bat. He then said that sometimes people will just sneak people in when others are busy or not looking at the members checking in. But I seriously need to know, am I in the wrong or am I the jerk for not letting this lady bring her friend into the gym? Because right now, I'm really not sure if this was the right move to make. No, you're definitely not the jerk here. Jackie knew exactly what she was doing, and she just didn't want to pay the $20 for her friend to work out. Because that's all that was happening here, all because Jackie was being incredibly cheap. Am I the jerk for not paying for a painting that I asked my friend to do after waiting not only 6 years for her to do it, but also with her demanding that I pay way more than I ever agreed to? Because right now, I am very frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend, who we will call Jordan, is a wonderful artist. I love her work, so I told her that if she ever considered doing commission pieces, I wanted to be her first customer. She said okay, and I sent her a picture of my dad who passed away as a reference, and I wanted to give this painting to my mom as a gift. Now, this was back in early 2018. Jordan said that she would start on it when she could, but that she was busy, and I really just thought that she did not want to do any commission work yet, so I just kind of left it at that. Well, a few weeks ago, after our conversation, Jordan posted on social media that she was open to do commission pieces and posted about how she would charge for those pieces. I messaged her again, and she said that she got my order and was starting the piece for me. Now, per her post, I assumed the piece would be around $200. She also said that she was charging her clients around that much, so I should expect to pay about the same. And she said that she didn't want me to pay until after she was done, so I didn't. Now, fast forward, and for the last 6 years, she would post the other commission pieces that she had done. When I asked about mine, she would say that she's working on it, but that she hasn't had the time to finish it up, and she often lost her job and was looking for a new place to stay, among other things. I understood that times could be hard, so I just waited. The reason I didn't just stop asking her was because sometimes she would send me Snapchats that showed sneak peeks of the painting, so I knew she was working on it little by little. Well, flash forward to last weekend, and she finally gave it to me. It is a beautiful painting of my dad, and I cried looking at it. But then she dropped the news on me that it was going to be $700, and I was not prepared to pay that much. I told her that when she started doing commissions, she was charging her clients about $200 to $300, but she responded by saying that she realized that her work was worth more, and also the cost of supplies had gone up since then, plus the amount of time spent working on it. I thought it was unfair to charge me so much, given that I had waited years for this painting. Also, within the last 6 years, I had gotten married, I had bought a house, and I now have 2 children of my own. I don't just have $700 to spare on this painting. She told me that it isn't her fault that I can't afford it, and refused to give it to me until I could pay her. So I told her to just keep it, since I didn't have the money for it in the first place. Well, she called me a jerk for wasting her time on this and then left. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk. The fact that you waited 6 years for this painting and then she tries to hike up the price is absolutely insane to me. There's no good excuse for that. If she had time to do commission pieces for other people, especially in 6 years' time, then she absolutely absolutely had time to do your piece that you asked for, but instead just chose not to. Like here she is posting all these pictures on social media of all the stuff she's doing, and yet in 6 years she can't even not only get your painting done, but also tell you the accurate price of what to expect. Being told that it's going to be $200 6 years ago, and then being like, oh psych, I raised it by $500. That would really piss me off, especially if it was something that was very sentimental and it was something that I was waiting on. This is a picture of your dad that you really wanted. You've been waiting for this since 2018. So for her to turn around and be like, I'm sorry, but it's going to be $700. I know my worth now, so you're just going to have to pay up. But at that point, it's like, no, you don't know your worth. You completely took advantage of me. She really did take advantage of your friendship and literally tried to raise the price at the last second, all without informing you first. Seriously, if she was going to raise her price, she should have told you well in advance so that you could have the money ready instead of dropping it on you at the last second. Because that, in my opinion, is completely unprofessional, as well as an incredibly disgusting thing to do. My mom is constantly manipulating my life and constantly making me second guess every move I make. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old male and I'm a cardiologist in training, pursuing a PhD, managing various international projects, plus having another part-time job at an outpatients clinic. I have been living alone for 3 years, and I always had a good relationship with my mother, and I thought it was better than most of my peers. I've always had the feeling that she wasn't satisfied with how I did certain things, but I never explored it more deeply. But everything changed about a year ago when I introduced them to my new girlfriend. Honestly, I thought that they would be thrilled with her. She's well-mannered, college-educated, and very intelligent. I never realized that her tattoos would be such a problem. On the day of the introduction, my mother called me, and the next day she even came to my house in person as soon as possible. I had to listen to how much I had hurt her, that I was a bad son, and that I had disappointed her. She managed in less than 2 hours to analyze my girlfriend and concluded that she was a bad person who liked to harm herself and was mentally disturbed. And this is all because she had tattoos. She then gave me an ultimatum. I had to choose either her or my girlfriend. She then told the whole family, so I also received similar phone calls from my grandparents. After numerous emotional meetings and text messages, she took back the ultimatum as if it never happened. In her eyes, I've made a compromise. I shouldn't mention my girlfriend. I should act as if she doesn't exist and continue visiting them happily as before. Now, of course, it didn't work. I didn't like visiting them. It was always emotionally draining. Every time I mentioned her first name, we would argue. When she saw the location at the place where my girlfriend works, I received blackmailing text messages. When I posted a video with her on social media, my mom had to unfollow me. I tried to limit frequency of visits with my parents, but every time I don't come, I get a message about how cold I am and that I don't make my parents happy. And going low contact doesn't help either, because she always found a way to contact me somehow. Now, of course, I always defended my girlfriend in front of them, and when they made inappropriate comments, I ended the conversation and I would just leave. She doesn't know about many of these things, and she doesn't deserve to suffer unnecessarily. It's unfair for her to be insulted by people who don't even really know her, especially when she doesn't deserve it. None of my mother's predictions about her ever came true, by the way. I've tried to find compromise and gradually get my parents to at least have a certain level of acceptance. However, I'm just completely exhausted by this, and I see no way out. I'm tired of hearing how I failed as a person, how they sacrificed their whole lives for me, and that I'm just ungrateful, that I don't care about them, and that my girlfriend is more important to me than they are, and that I'm just selfish for not caring about my parents' happiness. No argument seems to work. It's as if my feelings just don't matter. Everything that I bring up from the past is misunderstood or supposedly happened differently than what I remember. They say the whole situation is my fault because I know my mom didn't like tattoos, but I've long realized that this isn't really about my girlfriend, but honestly, it's about me. My parents don't understand that I wasn't choosing between them and my girlfriend, but that I choose myself and the ability to make my own decisions. However, they still feel that if I broke up with her, everything would be perfect again, and we would all just get along, but I really don't feel that way. I feel like they've completely humiliated me and that they are not good people. I've even started to doubt myself. I've even tried many times to view the situation from my parents' perspective, wondering if perhaps I made a mistake and caused the entire situation myself. Objectively, I know that I've already achieved more than what my parents did in their entire lives in terms of work, and I have a perfect relationship with my girlfriend. I don't even think I'm morally at rock bottom. I've acted correctly towards my girlfriend as she is the most important person in my life. I believe there are many things my parents could be proud of. Despite all of this though, I still feel trapped. Just the thought of living in the same city as her evokes this sense of lack of freedom in me. I still feel something like a mother's gaze or a sense of her constant scrutiny. I'm honestly trying to find hope for improvement. I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm looking for the inner strength to do it. I want to go to therapy and cut all ties with them. However, I find this extremely difficult due to the past. My father is a former alcoholic, and I was my mother's support during these tough times. I also feel sorry to lose contact with the rest of the family, especially my sister, but also my father. They don't share my mother's views, but they don't openly oppose her for the sake of household peace. It's challenging also because just over a year ago, everything seemed to be fine, but now I feel completely lost and I really don't know what to do. Yeah, I think everything you're talking about is so true, especially with you saying that you know what you need to do. Like, just from the outside looking in, your mom sounds incredibly obnoxious, and it sounds like she never wants to let you go from her life. And that is obnoxious and so uncalled for. So truly, I hope this all works out for you, because the way your mom is acting is super inappropriate. An entitled Karen breaks into my house, demanding that she use my bathroom as she was having an emergency. But despite the fact that I told her repeatedly that she needs to leave my property, she refused to go, forcing me to call the cops. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Okay, to kind of set the scene, it was a lazy Saturday afternoon, and I was at home enjoying some peace and quiet. I live in a suburban neighborhood where most people keep to themselves. My house is on a corner, so I get a lot of foot traffic passing by, especially on weekends. At around 2:00 p.m., I heard someone frantically knocking on my door. I wasn't expecting anybody, so I just ignored it at first, thinking that maybe it was some kind of solicitor or something like that. But the knocking turned into pounding, and then I heard someone yelling, "Hello, is anyone home? It's an emergency." So I got up to see what was going on, and I opened the door to find a woman, maybe in her 40s, looking desperate. She immediately blurted out, "I need to use your bathroom. It's an emergency." When she said this, I was taken aback. I didn't recognize her, and she wasn't giving off the best vibes. She had this intense, pushy energy that honestly made me very uncomfortable. I told her I was sorry, but I didn't feel comfortable letting a stranger into my home. She then started getting very angry, saying things like, "What kind of person won't help somebody in need? I'll be quick, I promise." But I stood my ground, and I told her that there was a gas station just down the street that she could use. But before I could react, she pushed past me and ran into my house, heading straight for the bathroom. And I was completely in shock. So I followed her, telling her to get out, but she just slammed the bathroom door shut right in my face. And right then and there, I didn't know what to do. I felt violated in my own home. So I grabbed my phone and I called the police. I stood outside the bathroom door, telling her that I had just called the cops and that she needed to leave immediately. But she yelled back that I was being ridiculous and that she would be out in just a minute. Well, the police arrived quickly, and when they did, she finally came out of the bathroom acting all indignant. She tried to argue with the officers, saying that I was overreacting and that she just needed to use the bathroom. But the cops thankfully were not having it. They escorted her out of the house and gave her a stern warning, but they didn't arrest her. But now I'm left wondering if I did the right thing. Some of my friends think that I overreacted by calling the cops, saying that I could have just waited it out and let her leave. But others think I'm completely justified considering that she broke into my house. So am I the jerk for calling the cops on this lady? What should I do? Wow, this is crazy that anybody in your life would be like, "Wow, you overreacted. You should have just waited for this lady to get out of your bathroom." It's like, no, that's not how this is gonna work at all. For starters, she literally broke into your house and was like, "Out of my way, I need to poop," or whatever she was gonna do. Like, that in and of itself is already jarring. Like, I can't imagine someone coming up to my house and suddenly saying, "Oh, it's an emergency, you need to let me in right now." Like, that would make me immediately suspicious. I would not think they have good intentions in the slightest, and I would assume, oh yeah, they're definitely gonna rob me or something like that. But more importantly, just look at the way she acted. This lady broke into your house. She literally pushed her way past you to go to the bathroom. And it doesn't matter if it was an emergency or not. That doesn't give somebody a license to break into your house and do whatever they want. So no, of course you're not the jerk here, and of course you didn't do anything wrong, because this lady could have been insane. And I really think that calling the cops was the only option in this scenario. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend's crazy mom is always blowing up my phone at 2 in the morning, trying to get me to wake up my boyfriend, as he tends to sleep in for his family business. And after dealing with this, as well as her controlling attitude all the time, I'm seriously at my wit's end, and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm a 28-year-old female and my boyfriend is 25. Overall, our relationship is practically practically perfect, and I actually have zero complaints about him at all. But when it comes to his mom, she is absolutely crazy. For starters, he owns and operates a family business with his dad, and when he oversleeps his alarm, which is almost every single day, his mom blows up my phone to try and get me to wake him up, I guess. Now, for further context, my boyfriend is Mexican and I'm white. When we first got together, he jokingly warned me about how Mexican moms are super clingy with their sons, but I wasn't concerned as I felt like I'm a great partner and super likable. His dad speaks basically zero English and his mom speaks very basic English. Like I mentioned, he and his dad own and operate a family business where their shifts start anywhere from 1 o'clock in the morning all the way till 4 o'clock in the morning. After my boyfriend gets off his 12-hour shift, he also usually repairs the equipment with his dad a few times a week. This saves them a lot of money on mechanics work, but it is extremely draining, and they're literally working a 12 to 18-hour shift 6 times a week, sometimes working on Sunday too. And this work will sometimes last until super late in the night, even 11 o'clock p.m., and then they have to start working again at like 2 in the morning. So needless to say, they do an insane amount of work. When we first dated, we lived an hour away, but would hang out multiple times a week after we both got out of work. I would always tell him to feel free to cut off our hangouts whenever he needed to. That way, he could get some adequate sleep for work. But during our hangouts, his mom would blow up his phone, just calling over and over again, until he would finally just answer and say that he's coming home soon and not to worry. I met his parents about a month into the relationship. We went to eat and it was decent, but neither of the parents really talked to me throughout the whole dinner or even asked me any questions. I tried to ask the mom a few questions, and we had no problem communicating, but she was pretty short. I also bought her a bouquet of flowers I made, as first impressions are everything. At the end of the dinner, she commented how he always comes home so late now. I just laughed and said I always tell him to go home, but he doesn't. And then I said, please let me know if you ever want his number, if you ever don't know where he is. Now she just laughed but did not take my number. I hung out with the family for the last New Year's, and it was alright, but a boisterous family friend made a comment about my man's mom when they were taking family pictures, and they said to me, see, she's gotta get family pictures without you. Didn't you know she's super jealous? Now the family didn't notice as they were just taking pictures, but I just kinda laughed it off. If it matters, they did include me in one picture, so it was a weird comment, but honestly, I didn't think much of it. We moved in February of 2024, which was a small 20 minutes away from his parents' house and the business location. He said his mom tried to discourage it, and I know it was pretty fast, so I kind of understood. But as it got closer, she would be crying and begging him not to go, and even offered to pay the deposit he would lose if he backed out, but he decided to stick with it. As soon as we moved in, I discovered his problem waking up on time for work, and I'm guessing his mom would be the one to force him to wake up for work when he was living at home. He falls asleep almost immediately whenever he is idle for too long. He will sleep for long periods of time when out of work, and will sleep through his alarm for almost 2 hours straight every single day. In my opinion, the poor guy is chronically fatigued. He literally works nearly every day a week at 12 to 18 hours a day. He is absolutely exhausted. Also, if he starts late, sometimes there might not be time to finish all the loads he hopes, but other times the demand is slow enough that whether he starts at 2 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, he is still finishing all possible loads. So it mostly affects what time work is done and what time he can start working on the equipment with his dad. I do try and wake him up a little because the alarms are annoying, but I also let him sleep because I feel bad for how tired he is, and also because it's not safe to be driving extremely sleep deprived. Now back to his mom. I always felt like she never really liked me. The handful of times that we hung out, which was always just going out to eat, it just feels extremely awkward for me, and the family just speaks Spanish the entire time, and I'm mostly just sitting there the entire meal, either on my phone or sometimes talking to my boyfriend when he talks to me. I always had a problem with the extreme lack of conversation between me and the mom because I always thought it was weird to invite me to a meal and just exclude me the whole time. In June, we went to dinner again, and I thought his mom was finally warming up to me. She was asking me questions, talking to me about what her youngest son was up to in school, and I honestly felt really good. At the end of the meal, she asked for my number, so I really thought we were warming up to each other. Well, 2 weeks later, she started calling me at 3 in the morning when he oversleeps. I personally have my phone on silent, so I never answer or respond the next day as I don't see a reason to. On the 4th of July, I went to a small barbecue with my boyfriend's family and his family friends. And trust me, this went so bad. As soon as I got there, the host's older mother was asking my man how it is living with me, as well as asking what I cook for lunch, but all of this was in Spanish. And I just know they're talking about me because she keeps gesturing to me, and you can just honestly tell. They then ask in English, what kind of things do you make for him? Now, I'm an incredible cook, so I pulled out an album I had ready of gorgeous, colorful plates. And right when I do that, they start speaking Spanish again. And then in English, they start laughing. They say to me, you need to start making lunches for his dad too. And I thought it was dumb, but I just laughed it off. Apart from those two sentences, almost nobody says anything to me. At this point, this lady and my boyfriend's mom keep asking him things, talking amongst themselves and laughing a lot, and I'm just on my phone the entire time. I texted my boyfriend that I know they're talking crap about me, and he says they're not talking crap, it's just the way they banter in his culture. Unfortunately, I cry super easily. I felt very uncomfortable sitting there, not knowing what anyone else was saying, and even though I tried not to, my eyes welled up and I just had to get up and go to the bathroom. The wife half of the hosting party comes to comfort me and says she confirmed that nobody is saying bad things, but said that to be honest sometimes, she sees my boyfriend's mom giving me looks. We have a good talk about how it's hard to win over crazy moms, and I then went back to the barbecue. When I get back from the bathroom, the mom is sitting with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend says to me, my mom wants to try your cheesecake, let's get some, shall we? Which was really weird, because why wouldn't the mom just tell me to get the cheesecakes? Also, then eventually everybody tried them, and I got a lot of compliments on them, but my boyfriend's mom just sat there still not talking to me. When we left, we did say the host's mother was basically asking if I can't cook since I'm white, and if I only make frozen food. My issue is that these people make absolutely zero effort to get to know me, to make me feel genuinely included and welcome. The speaking Spanish part only bugs me when I feel like they're cracking jokes, where I just can't even defend myself, or even know if that's what's being said in the first place. I left the 4th of July feeling super upset, and basically said I never really want to hang out with his family ever again. He says the way that they are is just their culture, but I tell him that I'm sorry, but I'm just used to people of all cultures treating me with basic decency and some kind of effort in the very least in getting to know me just a little bit. Overall, he said that's fine, and that what matters in the end is me feeling comfortable because I'm his partner that he wants to marry and that I come first, which satisfies my uneasiness about his controlling mother. Ever since then, I have not seen them, but his mom has been calling me so much when he oversleeps. Like we're talking 8 times in an hour. I have her on her very own special mode of do not disturb so that I don't get disturbed by her phone calls, but I'm getting irritated with her feeling entitled to call me at these insane hours. Should I tell my boyfriend to tell his mom to stop calling me for work-related issues? Should I text her myself? I mean, should I just let her keep calling? What should I do? Okay, I can completely understand where you're coming from, where you're like, okay, his mom is kind of crazy and a little bit controlling, but also, what is the boyfriend doing to try and fix this situation? Like seriously, this is a grown man. This guy's 25 years old. He absolutely should be able to wake up on time for work. Why are you being saddled with that responsibility? Like that really is annoying. It's like, come on, you can't have your mom wake you up all the time, can you? Because the original poster should not be taking that place. So to that end, I can kind of understand why the mom is calling you, because maybe she thinks that you can help him get up on time. But in my opinion, this problem begins and ends with your boyfriend. He needs to not only talk to his mom about stepping off and stepping back, but also figure out his sleep schedule and his work-life balance. Like this all seems incredibly unfair to you specifically across the board. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very unhappy with the way I'm being treated. Am I the jerk for kicking my sister out of my wedding after she refused to follow the color scheme? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 25-year-old female, and when I was 9 years old, my parents adopted my sister, who we will call Jen, who was 7 years old at the time. Jen was thin and fearful due to being neglected, and we did everything we could to make her feel loved. We bought her lots of toys, and basically everything Jen wanted, she got. When my parents asked me to move to the smaller bedroom so that Jen could have her own room, I was happy to do it. When they asked if I would let Jen pick the decorations and cake for my upcoming birthday, I agreed as well. I was so happy to have a sister, and I understood why my parents gave her special treatment. Only the treatment didn't stop. For years, every trip we went on, we had to do what Jen wanted to do. We had to eat exactly where she wanted, and she got to plan all of my birthday parties. If she didn't get what she wanted, she threw a tantrum. I still felt loved and cared for by my parents. I mean, they drove me to practices, bought me things, cooked meals for me, spent genuine family quality time, and gave me advice. But I always seemed second to Jen. As I got older, I did anything I could to leave the house. I got my first job when I was 12 years old, and I even vacationed with my friends instead of family. I played 3 different sports, and I did band. And I took my driver's test the day I turned 16, and I bought a car right after that. And I even went to college on the other side of the country. Now that I make good money, I do things that I missed as a child. I take fancy vacations and throw elaborate parties parties as I please, and my wedding was no exception. My fiancé and I wanted everything to be perfect, and with that, we thought it would be fun to have a color scheme. My favorite color is yellow, and his is blue, so my guests would wear yellow and his would wear blue, with any mutual friends wearing green. I picked out a dress with green embroidered details, and he picked a boutonniere with green flowers. When Jen found out about this, she was mad. And I didn't actually know this, but she hates the color yellow as it supposedly washes her out. She told me under no circumstances would she ever wear yellow. Now, when she said this, I just shrugged, and I said to her, okay, that's fine, but I would kick you out if you did not wear yellow. And after I said that, there was no further discussion. But fast forward to my wedding day, and Jen came in a purple dress. And right then and there, I told her to leave immediately. The color scheme was perfect, and she literally ruined it. Now, when I said this, Jen refused to leave. That is, until I threatened to call security. The rest of the wedding went smoothly, but afterwards, my parents were furious with me for kicking Jen out. I told them that I warned her she would be kicked out if she didn't follow the color scheme, but they said they all thought it was a joke. They said it was cruel of me to kick my sister out over something so trivial, but I told them that this was my wedding that I threw without their support, so I can kick whoever I want out. My fiance came rushing up to defend me and even told my parents that they should be ashamed of how they treated me. But over the past few days, a lot of people I've talked to, namely my grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, have all had mixed opinions. Some say that they would not have even invited Jen if they were me, while others are saying that I should have just let it slide. So honestly, am I the jerk for kicking Jen out of my wedding? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I think Jen was trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get exactly what I want today. Like seriously, if there's some kind of like dress code or color code at a wedding, the very least you could do is follow it. And it's not like Jen didn't know about the color scheme or any of that other garbage. She knew exactly what she was doing going to that wedding. She showed up in a purple dress because she wanted to stand out and literally take away from what you were trying to do. And that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for calling out my husband and his parents after they tried to embarrass my stepdaughter in front of her friends? Here's what happened. So my husband's parents stayed with us for a few days, and the other night, we had an issue that resulted in my stepdaughter being angry, me being angry, as well as my husband and them getting angry. I met my stepdaughter when she was 6 years old, and I started dating my husband when she was 5, with us getting married when she was 8. Now, I'll admit, when we first met, knowing that her mom had passed away, I thought I would be filling in as a mom-like or at least a second mom type of figure. In my heart, I wanted to be her mom, and for her to be my daughter, but it was clear before we got married that it wouldn't happen. She was actually very resistant to being around me. I told my husband that we needed therapy together before we got married, because she had to be okay with things and we needed to figure out what our family dynamic would look like. I won't bore you with the unnecessary details, but she didn't want me to replace her mom. She was already very insecure about me being around because her parents hadn't been together when her mom passed away, which to her meant that she was alone loving her mom. But she knew what we wanted, for her to love me and see me as another mom. But it scared her and it made her sad. It made her tummy hurt, to quote my stepdaughter. But through therapy, we figured out what the relationship would look like. My husband would be the parent and I would be an adult in the home and be a safe person for my stepdaughter. My husband would keep the one-on-one time with my stepdaughter, and we would spend some time together naturally over time and in the way that worked best without forcing it. My stepdaughter would call me by my first name and I'd call her my stepdaughter and not my daughter. And eventually we worked it all out, and we have been good with all of that. She and I have a good relationship, and she's a sweet big sister to her half-siblings. It's all very normal. Then a few days ago, my stepdaughter had brought friends into the house rather quickly, and these were some new friends. She introduced all of us, including me, by my name, but my mother-in-law told her that she could say more than my name. Well, she told them that I was her stepmother technically, but more of a friend. Then my husband and his parents interrupted and said that she should be more generous than that, and that I'm the only real mother she's ever had in her life. And they started to say how grateful she should be to have someone like me as a mother. Well, when she started crying, I told them to stop. I said that my name had been fine. They should stop pushing and trying to humiliate her. My stepdaughter told my husband that she always knew he thought her mom was worthless, but she doesn't. I told her to go get ready and have fun, and I gave her some extra cash. And then an argument broke out between me and my husband and the in-laws. They felt I should appreciate the gesture of defending me, but I told them it wasn't defending me. It was done to humiliate her enough into introducing me how they wanted. My husband regretted his action afterwards, and I told him he'll have to do a lot to make up for it. His parents, however, feel I was cruelly unfair to them, and I should not have snapped at them like like I did. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, your husband and the in-laws are completely out of their mind. Why on earth would they ever be like, wow, you should be more grateful to your stepmom. She's the only real mother you've ever had in your life. Like, what in the world is going on right now? That is so rude. You don't say that to a child. Literally, a child who lost their mother. For literally anybody to make that kind of statement and then try to fall back and be like, wow, you were really cruel towards us. That is not only incredibly delusional, but that would be like the only time I ever deal with that, because there's no way anybody's gonna treat this kid in that manner. Like, you guys came to a consensus. You basically figured out what works for all of you, and everything was normal. Like, things really were working out. So for them to step in and be like, no, you have to do it this way. You need to be more grateful. Like, that is crazy to me, and I can never understand that kind of rationale. So no, you're not the jerk, and in my opinion, your husband and the in-laws absolutely need to apologize to her. An entitled Karen steals my breakfast on a cruise line, demanding that I give my breakfast over to her. So I decide to maliciously comply by allowing her to eat it, despite the fact that I had packed that food full of hot sauce beforehand. And I've honestly never been happier to unintentionally give out revenge to anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was on a cruise, and it was the first morning of a 2-week trip to New Caledonia and back. Also, it was my first solo vacation. Now, I'm a chunky guy, and I do love a good buffet, but especially a breakfast buffet. It's the pinnacle of human civilization, and I think it's the greatest achievement of humanity. Anyways, this morning I attacked the buffet with everything that I have. And one small note, as it will be important later on, is that I'm vegetarian, and I have been for about 30 years. And no, I'm not pushy or judgmental about it, and nearly all my close friends eat meat, but it's just not my thing. So I got myself 2 plates loaded with food. I also noticed that the Mexican food station of the buffet had a wide variety of hot sauces. So, as a man who likes his food a bit spicy, I thought I'd try just a little bit of everything. I found a table, I put my plates down, and then I ran off to get some coffee, some water, and some orange juice. And as you can probably tell, I wanted my first cruise breakfast to be as big and as epic as possible. Anyways, I come back 3 minutes later, and sitting at my table about to dig into my plate of food is the entitled Karen of this story. I look at her and I say, "Excuse me, ma'am, but that's my food. I literally just went to get coffee." She looks at me and says, "Could you let me have it? You're young and you can stand in line. I'm old and I can't get around well like I used to. I would appreciate it if you would let me eat your food." Now, this was my first day on a vacation, and I didn't want to mess it up by starting a fight with an old lady over free food. So you know what? I just let her have it. Also, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, and a person that I don't know had a knife and fork in my food, so I wasn't going to eat it anyways. I looked at her and I said, "Okay, but I must warn you, I used a lot of hot sauces on that, so the food may be a little bit spicy." She looks at me and says, "That's okay. I've been around the world. I can handle spicy foods." And with that, I went back around hitting up all the different stations of the buffet, and this time filling up a single plate. As I'm in line for an omelet, the same entitled Karen comes up and starts ranting. She says to me, "Are you trying to unalive me? There were so many hot sauces in there. Your meal wasn't fit for human consumption. And why didn't you get any bacon? What kind of person doesn't have bacon for breakfast?" She then kept complaining to literally anybody who would listen to her about how I was trying to take her out with the hot sauces, and how my food, which I picked for myself by the way, was completely inedible for her. So I just grabbed my omelet and I found a new table. I felt bad all my other food was wasted, but thankfully this was a big ship, and I didn't have to deal with this entitled Karen ever again. Okay, this story's hilarious to me because you literally got revenge on this lady without even meaning to. For starters, who in their right mind would walk up to someone's plate and be like, "I'm gonna eat all of this. This is my food now. I'm old. You can get more food." Like, seriously, what is wrong with her? Like, at this point, she deserves to eat all those hot sauces. Did she really think it would be a good idea to walk in there and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take the first person's food that I can see"? Like, I don't know about you, but that's the last thing on my mind when I go to a buffet. I don't want someone else's plate. I want my plate. Like, was she literally sitting around waiting for someone to put down their food and be like, "Okay, now's my time to strike"? Like, what is wrong with her? Why not just get in line and get your own thing? Or even ask like a staff member to be like, "Hey, I'm old and I can't walk. Can you please make me a plate? I would really appreciate it." Because that would have made so much more sense than stealing from somebody else who you literally just met. Like, why take his food when you can quite literally get your own? It really just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think she got exactly what she deserved. So honestly, I'm kind of glad in your taste of food, because the fact that you put all these hot sauces on this without this Karen knowing, in my opinion, is absolutely hilarious, and overall is 100% deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the Jerk for for telling my sister to stop expecting me to play baby daddy for her child, because right now I feel like she's asking way too much of me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my twin sister, who we will call Mary, has a 1-year-old son that we will call Lucas. Now, for a bit of backstory, she had a horrible pregnancy right from the first trimester and had to quit her job since she was spending too much time out of the office. Her ex-boyfriend turned out to be a massive piece of garbage who claimed that Mary had cheated on him and pinned the baby on him. And when my family insisted on taking a paternity test as soon as the baby was born, he agreed but went out for some milk before the due date. After Lucas was born, finances became too tricky with a newborn and with Mary's postpartum complications. She then asked if I could let her stay with me temporarily so she doesn't have to pay rent, and I disagreed. I have an extra room in my house, which I inherited from my grandma, so I don't have to worry about rent either. Well, long story short, it's been tough living with a baby whose mother needs so much more help than one person can provide, and our parents live too far away to be of any help. Anyways, I didn't mind waking up half the time to give Lucas his bottle or staying with him when she needed some time to herself. I also paid for everything baby related, things like the hospital bills for the both of them, the food, clothing, diapers, I mean, you name it, I bought it. But now that Mary and my nephew are stable enough that she has now resumed working, she started pushing for more. She expected me to keep paying for everything, but I told her it's harder now that I'm not putting in as many hours and I get paid hourly. But even still, she buys nothing and I end up paying anyways. She also thinks it doesn't make sense to pay for daycare when I'm home most of the day, but I ended up paying for it myself when she wouldn't. So on Monday, she asked me to take Lucas to his hospital appointment, and I just said no. I told her to take the day off for that because my job hasn't been doing well lately as I've been spending too much time taking care of Lucas. She pointed out how this is my nephew, and if I adopt kids, I will need to make sacrifices too, to which I said, okay, I will make them when the time comes, but I'm not Lucas's dad, and although I'm happy to help where I can, I shouldn't be expected to change my life for him. So Mary took a day off, but since the appointment, she hasn't spoken to me except for saying a yes or no answer when I talked to her, and she's been keeping Lucas in her room when he's not at daycare. Now, I love the little guy with all my life, and I'm wondering if maybe I took things just a little bit too far. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, because honestly, it really seems like she's taking advantage of your kindness. Let's look at the facts here. You literally let her into your house, and you said, okay, I will help you out and I will help you get back on your feet. But like, couldn't you argue that now she definitely is on her own feet? She has a job, she's working, and she now, at least to me, seems like she's ready to take care of her kid by herself. Like, I'm just as compassionate towards anybody else when it comes to being like a single mom or dad. Like, I can only imagine how hard that must be, and truly, my sympathy goes out to Mary in the story. But at this point, it really seems like she's taking advantage of your kindness, and she's trying to force you to step in as the father when you definitely never signed up for that. You're just trying to help her on hard times, and that's literally all you wanted to do. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for saying no, and I honestly think it's a good idea that you set boundaries, because the way she's being demanding and now giving you the silent treatment, in my opinion, is so uncalled for, and you definitely do not deserve that, especially considering all the things that you did for Mary as well as her son. Am I the jerk for not telling my sister that I ran into her ex-husband while I was shopping at Target? Because right now she feels offended, but I'm just left scratching my head if I did something wrong, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old male, and I got a call at about 12:30 in the morning from my sister who is a year older than I am. She led the conversation with confirming details for a thing that we have later today, and I'm confident that that was just a lead-in because we didn't discuss anything different from what we had already confirmed earlier in the day, so to call me after midnight for that was really not a likely excuse. Well, I didn't have to wait long to find out what the true reason was for her calling. A few months ago, I ran into her ex-husband at a Target self-checkout. The two of them got divorced about a year and a half ago, and they are amicable, but they both seem to hold on to some unresolved feelings. Now, for reference, he and I have always gotten along, and he's also well-liked by family in general, although my younger sister has expressed to me that she has harbored some resentment for some of his behavior around the time leading up to the divorce. I wasn't privy to the details, and I generally have some grace for people not showing up as the best versions of themselves, especially during something as stressful as a divorce. So yeah, we ran into each other. We spoke for a few minutes, we hugged, and then we went on our ways. And I haven't seen, heard from, or reached out to him ever since. However, my sister feels offended that I didn't tell her that I happened to run into him. And to be clear, it's not for any safety concerns or anything of that nature. The phrase that she used was that, oh, it got back to her. And I guess he mentioned it to a mutual friend of theirs at some point, and it recently got mentioned to her. She feels offended and thinks it should have been obvious for me to know that I should have mentioned something like that to her, and that she's disappointed that she had to hear it from someone else. Meanwhile, I'm doing my best to be empathetic, but I'm also thinking like, what are you talking about? I didn't think such a random occurrence warranted me being notified by her. If anything, I can see that she's had some highs and lows in the aftermath of it all, so I was probably less inclined to even bring it up, because if you're in the process of trying to get over someone, me bringing them up for an unimportant, trivial reason seems like it could potentially be triggering. Now, as it is, I don't need all of her requests to make sense to me. If my sister wants me to do that for her, it's honestly no problem at all, regardless of if it makes sense in my mind or not. But I had to exit our phone conversation rather abruptly. Also, I could avoid all of this turning into an argument because I felt like I was being chastised for something I had no awareness of, and I don't think my actions or non-actions were unreasonable or problematic. She's of the opinion that I should have known to alert her of any interactions I have with either of her ex-husbands. I've never been married, but if the shoe were on the other foot, I can't imagine myself caring that much about it. Am I missing something here? Is there some kind of etiquette or protocol for stuff like this that I'm just not aware of? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk here, because it sounds like the interaction you had on Target was really pretty straightforward. Like, this really was not that big of a deal, and I just don't think this warrants her being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna call you at midnight. Like, I don't know about you, but that seems really extreme and kind of like a little bit weird in my opinion. Like, sure, it kind of seems like she does have a lot of things going on, and she clearly has some kind of like negative feelings towards her ex-husband or whatever's going on, but that really should not involve you in the slightest. If you were like meeting up with him and going to like baseball games or hanging out together or something like that, then sure, I think that would warrant you having to talk to her about it and be like, hey, I do have like a friendship with him. But this situation is definitely not that. You haven't gone out of your way to meet this guy. You literally just saw him in the Target self-checkout, and that was it. This was literally just a freak incident where you ran into each other in the wild. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And if anything, I think this is just evidence that your sister is clearly still mourning the loss of her marriage. And I think that might be something to consider the next time she comes to you about something of this nature. An entitled jerk makes my life a living nightmare, as he constantly complains that his product he ordered from my company hasn't arrived when he wanted it to. So I decided to maliciously comply by throwing this guy a curveball in a way he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've worked my way up the ladder at the company where I work, but when I started, I was a support agent. By the time this story happened, I was a team lead of some kind, but I don't remember which. What matters is that I still worked directly supporting customers, but I also had a fair amount of agency, meaning that I didn't have to ask for permission or assistance to do anything related to my job. We're a software company, but we used to sell a specific small Bluetooth accessory that worked with one of our applications. It came in several bright colors, and we sold multi-packs. This was also the kind of device you might need more than one of, and it was a popular gift. One year during the Christmas season, our manufacturer messed up gloriously. They didn't deliver all of the inventory we were supposed to get, and worse, much of what we did get was messed up and had serious defects on them. It was a horrible mess and a serious detriment to our small company, and I was on the front lines of cleaning it up. We wound up severely backordered at the busiest time of year, having sold units that should have been delivered, but that we either never received or found to be defective upon arrival. We had to contact people and let them know their orders would be delayed until after the holidays. Some people wanted refunds and other people wanted their items late. We tried to be helpful and bent over backwards to be apologetic, all while trying to keep this debacle from becoming a catastrophe and incentivizing people not to cancel. There was one man who wanted us to perform magic, however. He wanted his order, our largest multi-pack, and he wanted it now. I don't know how many times he contacted us, but I wound up being the only one to deal with him because he would always be escalated to me. I told him over and over again that we couldn't send his order even though we very much wanted to, so we'd be happy to just refund him. If he wanted to wait, there were many others ahead of him to get their orders. Well, he demanded that he get his order done first, and he didn't really care about anyone else that had to wait. He would berate me and try to literally command me to do as he said almost daily for a while. And this is all no matter how many times I explained why I literally couldn't. Eventually, I opened the spreadsheet where we were keeping our back orders, and I moved him to the very bottom. And sure, I was prolonging my own suffering, but this guy had me feeling very petty. After the holidays ended and upper management waged a nuclear war with our manufacturer, the usable stock started rolling in. I bumped a few deserving or eager customers to the top of the list, but mostly I sent them out to order. This guy is the only one I bumped down, but I had something ready for the next time he decided to scream at me. When he inevitably did, I told him we had stock, but others were receiving theirs first, and we had not yet gotten the colors he ordered in his multi-pack. Now, I was sort of planning to do what I did anyways, but he was kind enough to give me explicit permission. He then screamed at me, "I don't care what colors you send. You're gonna send that to me immediately." And you know what? One of our colors included Susan G. Komen pink. The customer was gloriously smug and condescending when I told him we'd go ahead and fulfill his order right away. He definitely thought he had won some kind of victory, but sure enough, the day his package arrived, he sent me an email complaining about all of it. He said to me, "I know I said I'd accept any color, but really? You sent me, a man, an order of nothing but pink? I want these replaced. Send me something else." Well, I told him that's all we had available for him, and that conversation was over. And so, as it was, I never heard from this guy ever again. It took a few years before I brought it up, but I've told that anecdote at workplace meetings a few times, including to my boss, the CEO. And I wouldn't take another support job to save an orphan puppy on Earth, but that story was absolutely worth the misery. Yeah, that guy was super demanding and incredibly rude. Seriously, all you have to do is show some semblance of kindness, and in my opinion, a lot of customer service people would probably be more than willing to help you out. At least that's how I felt when I worked those kinds of jobs. It's the people that were like really pushy and rude and condescending towards me that left me with a bad taste in my mouth and very resistant to ever helping them ever again. Like seriously, show me some semblance of like decency and like human kindness, and I will go a long way just to make sure you get what you need. But if you're mean and rude and treat me like dirt, or even act like you're like above me and I'm somehow your slave, like that's the fast track to me ignoring your request and literally putting you at the bottom of the list like this guy did. And for the record, no, I don't think that was petty. I think that's karma working its magic, not to mention the fact that you gave him the brightest pink color he could possibly ever not want. So good for you for getting back at this guy in the way that you did, because his attitude absolutely deserved to get shut down. Am I the jerk for not giving my stepsister my great-grandparents' house, as she claims that she deserves it more than me? Here's what happened. Okay, to make a very long story short, my great-grandparents passed away about 20 years ago, and the house had to be torn down to the studs and rebuilt for several reasons. I'm a 24-year-old female. I was living with my mother in my late grandmother's house with her boyfriend, who is now her husband, and his son, who is about 23 years old. But as tension rose between me and her husband, we'll call him Bob for the sake of the story, as well as her son, who we will call Connor, I decided to move out and get my own apartment. I was tired of being disrespected and made out to be a villain because his son was seen as a perfect angel. I would still come to visit my mother often, but I would leave once either of them got home. Eventually, work finally started on the project house, and basically anything that could be done without a specialist, we did. So me, Bob, Connor, and my mom worked on this house for 5 years. There was a lot of debate regarding who would get the house, either me or Connor, but they decided I would get it because I was living by myself and Connor was refusing to pay rent, which was in a contract he signed with my mom and Bob. And they also decided this for a few other reasons, such as that it's my great-grandparents' parents' house. I have been living in my mini dream home, think maybe a 2-bedroom cottage with about 900 square feet, for about 4 months now. My stepsister, we'll call her Amy, suddenly comes back into the picture because she will date a guy for a few months and then cheat on him and live with a guy she cheated on him with. And she's done this about 7 or 8 times now. Her child is about 5 years old and has been bounced around with her. Recently, she started calling her father, who is Bob in the story, and asking to move in with him, but he said no, as there's no room for her and a child, let alone her horses. And trust me, she cares more about her horses than her own kid. Fast forward a week, and she's calling again saying, "Okay, is Sunday okay for him to come pick up the trailer?" And Bob asked her where she thinks a huge horse trailer would go, and that's when she says that it's gonna go behind my house. But Bob said that she would need to ask me if that's something that I would want behind the house in the first place. Eventually, she goes quiet. She says to me, "Can you ask her? She'll just say no to me." But it's like, are you kidding me? You literally just answered your own question. So Bob ends up laughing and says, "Well, I think she hates me more than you, so good luck with that." Another week goes by and she throws another fit, this time demanding the house. Because according to her, why should I get to live in a nice 2-bedroom house when I don't have any kids or even a boyfriend? Now, her mom, who is Bob's ex, is taking Amy's side and yelling at Bob to give Amy the house. But Bob ends up getting into a fight with the mom about it because it really doesn't seem fair. Now, mind you, I am the only child who has had to work for everything. The house is the only thing I ever got handed to me, and I helped pay for most of it because it was what I wanted. They get whatever they want whenever they want. That is, except for the house. So am I the jerk for putting my foot down and telling my stepsister that she cannot kick me out of my own house? What should I do? You are not the jerk, and I can't believe she even tried to assume that you should leave and she should take it. Your stepsister sounds incredibly irresponsible and very entitled. Like seriously, who's gonna walk up and be like, "Oh, give me the house, I deserve it," as if her having a baby out of wedlock, as well well as cheating on multiple guys, 8 times, somehow means that she's deserving to not only use your property for her stupid horses, but also try to pretend like, oh yeah, I deserve it more than you. But also, can we talk about that for a second? She literally is going from place to place and she still owns horses. Now, I don't know that much about horses. I'm very ignorant on the subject matter, so please take what I'm gonna say with a grain of salt. But I do know people who own horses, and my god, they are so expensive. There is so much time and effort that goes into taking care of those animals that it's honestly amazing to me that someone who sounds this irresponsible even has one horse to begin with, let alone multiple ones. Like, wouldn't you think that maybe if you're having problems, it might be time to sell the horses or at least give them to somebody else? And sure, I get it, they're more than pets, they're like part of the family and all that stuff, but this lady that's being described in this story honestly fits the bill as somebody who not only should not have kids, but also should not be owning large animals like that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for putting your foot down, because in my opinion, her behavior is incredibly inappropriate. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.